Okay, let's call this a regular board meeting, Oscoda Township Board meeting to order. It's Monday, June 13th at 7:15. We'll start with our Pledge of Allegiance, please. If everybody could please rise.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings? Here. Ms. McGuire?
Here.
Mr. Spencer?
I'm here.
Mr. Palmer?
Here.
Mr. Sutton here. Mr. Worcesterbarth?
Present.
Ms. Richards?
Here. Okay, do we have any agenda additions this evening?
Yes, I have a few under subcommittee, Cedar Lake Improvement Board discussion or update. Two, Mr. Sutton had sent out an email on the 10th, subject to FOIA and custody of documents. I'd like to get an explanation of that to the board. Three, I'd like to schedule a work session in the near future to discuss township finance and also chain of command items, and I'd like the CPA and the attorney to be present with the board.
Okay,
Four,
wait a minute. So the number two, I got confused, I guess, when you start with the numbers. You had indicated Cedar Lake Improvement Board, you want that under subcommittee
under
reports?
subcommittee,
Okay,
yes.
and where were the other ones you were wanting to add?
Under
I
other.
believe other.
Okay, so. So after the Cedar Lake Improvement Board, the next one was,
The email from Mr. Sutton, June 10th to the board regarding FOIA and custody of documents. I'd like an explanation to the board on what's going on there.
okay, so you'd like to put that under number 7 under other?
Yes.
Okay, and then the next one?
Number 8 under other is to schedule a work session to discuss township financials and chain of command issues, and I'd like the attorney and CPA to be present with the board.
Are they both under the same title?
Just two separate items in the work session.
Oh, okay.
So you want to schedule that work session before we are presented with the audit of 2021?
Yes. And my fourth item is actually removal on request of the superintendent to remove number 3 under supervisor's report, request to sell township property, as they're still waiting on some information. And then 9 under other, as we've got a document in front of us from Michigan Community Television for a quote for hearing assist devices. I'd like to have that discussion under other number 9.
Okay, and the request, you want to remove number 3 under the superintendent's report, the request to sell township property?
Yes.
That's that would be the boat?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, any questions besides the ones I just had in regard to the request from Mr. Westerbarth to add those?
We had the Sofoya at number 6.
Number 7, I believe.
Number 7 was
what-
the FOIA.
What was number 6?
Number 6 was already, there wasn't a number 6. I'm sorry, you're up.
Oh,
Yeah,
gotcha.
up there.
Oh,
Yeah, so number 7 was the FOIA, number 8 was a work session, and number 9, this is all under other.
ADA.
Was the MICTV ADA. Okay, is there any other discussion, or is there a motion to approve that request to add those agenda additions?
I also needed to add an addition to postpone. Oh, it's over here. The storage container purchase request for township records, as we're waiting some additional information.
So you want to postpone the whole discussion?
Yes. That'll be to our next regular meeting or special if needed.
Is that what you were going to add or change, Tammy? I know you were just,
Yes.
okay. Okay, well, good thing we set an agenda to begin with, huh? Is there a motion to approve those requests as submitted?
So moved.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Spencer and support by Ms. McGuire to make those changes to the agenda as requested. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Wushtabarth?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. This evening, we have two public presentations. We have, our first one is the Iosco County Operating Millage is going to do a presentation to everybody, so if you could please, whoever wants to step up first, Jamie.
Good evening. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jamie Soboleski. I'm the Iosco County Controller. We appreciate you letting us speak to you tonight. I started at Iosco County as the controller in September of 2021. And one of the first things that was brought to my attention when I started was that the county had an operating millage that was on the ballot in 2020, and it was one of only 2 millage proposals of its type in the state that didn't pass. So one of my first goals was to talk to different community members and community leaders and ask them why they thought that it didn't pass. And overwhelmingly, I heard the same thing over and over again. We didn't know about it until we went to vote, and we didn't know what it was for. So I've made it my mission, and as you can see, I travel in a pack. We've made it our mission to not have that happen again this year. We are asking for an operating millage on the August 2nd ballot, so I wanted to discuss a little bit of what we're asking for and why. So our millage for our operations was originally set in 1977 at 4.5 mils. The Headley legislation that you guys deal with as well has rolled back our millage rate, so we're at 3.9 mils at this point. That's the third lowest in the entire state of Michigan. So we are 56th in population, but 79th or 80th in operating millage amount. The state average is 5.7. We're asking to be brought up to 5.2. That was after careful consideration on what we think that we need to operate properly, but not overburdening the taxpayers. So we don't want to ask for more than we need. Similar to your township, this would fund our general fund, and we have some of the same departments, clerk, treasurer, but we have a lot of other mandated services that we have to provide that are paid for out of our general fund that a township would not have. Included in that would be a Register of Deeds office, the Iosco County Trial Court, the Prosecuting Attorney's Office, the Iosco County Jail, the Iosco County Sheriff's Department, Equalization, Emergency Management, the Drain Commission, and the County Medical Examiner is all paid for out of our operating millage. So I think that's another key point that the public probably isn't aware of, that all those departments are funded by that operating millage. Those of you that follow the news would know that in 2021, we laid off 9 employees and we took an additional 3 full-time to part-time. Employees have received little to no raises since 2020 and on. 2021, there was no raises except for our sheriff's department. And the reason that they were able to get raises is Alcona County's jail was closed and we took in their inmates. So we got some more revenue. We turned that right back around and gave that to the sheriff's department employees. So we were aware when that jail closed, we got all their inmates, but they had 7 full-time corrections officers that we were hoping to get some of those employees. And what ended up happening is we got 0 of the 7. They all went to Alpena County because our wages were so low at that point. Our jail is currently short 3.5 positions. We can't even get anyone to apply at this point. So typically Sheriff Frank does travel with us and speaks to how that affects his department, but he had a conference that he's at today, so he wasn't able to speak with you. Besides the wages of the sheriff's deputies, we also need increased wages for all our employees. As you can imagine, we're competing with the private sector, and we're not at our budget level being able to do it very well. We, for example, hired someone in our Register of Deeds office in March. They've already left and taken a private position up here because the pay is just so much better. Our facilities, if anyone's walked through the county building in recent times, especially on a rainy day, you would see our roofs leak. There's holes in our parking lot. Luckily, one good thing that came out of COVID was the American Rescue Plan money. The commissioners have spent, or are trying to spend, we've approved contracts for a lot of those projects, those capital improvement projects, including roofs on all our buildings, all our parking lots, our mechanical system. But traditionally at the county, there's been no extra funds to set aside. We don't have a capital improvement plan. I'm hoping to change that, and with this millage, be able to save up so we can keep the facilities in a decent condition. So overall, the average taxable value of the homestead property in the county is $46,000, and our equalization has said this increase would cost about $60 per year, so about $5 or so a month for this operating millage. If you wouldn't mind, Prosecutor Jim Beccarella is here, and he'd like to speak to how this affects his department, if you don't mind.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, I'm Jim Beccarella, I'm your prosecutor. I run the lowest funded, smallest staffed prosecuting office in the state for a county our size. To give you a comparison, Alpena County has approximately 3,000 more residents than Iosco. We carry a similar caseload. They have a total of 4 prosecutors, where I have myself and my assistant. They have a total of 5 support staff. I have 2 support staff. They have 1.5 victims advocates. I have 1. I see this as a public safety millage. The money that's going into this millage is making it so I can do my job. Not only does it support our jail, not only does it support our sheriff's department, it also supports our medical examiner. Some of the money goes to our Children's Assessment Center. They're the people who do the forensic interviews of children who are sexually or physically assaulted. It goes towards Sting. It goes towards everything I need to do, well, except for Oscoda Township Police. You guys fund that. To do my job. If you're looking at this year, I have spent my trial budget. I've had 4 felony trials. One was a man who assaulted police officers. The second one was a drug dealer. The last 2 were men who sexually assaulted little girls. I have coming up the girl who allegedly murdered her child here in Oscoda. I have the 2 people who were killed in that construction zone. I have 2 drug dealers who killed their clients. I have some very serious, very expensive cases coming up, and I really don't have the means to pay to do my job. Scott Franks usually speaks on what he's facing and why he has a deficit. That's because he's competing with McDonald's for employees. A corrections officer is an incredibly dangerous job. I can tell you that one of the defendants that was recently convicted of sexually assaulting a little girl had a plan where he was asking each of the corrections officer what their favorite color was, because he was going to stab that corrections officer with a pencil of their favorite color. That's the type of stuff those people are doing, and they are competing with McDonald's for wages. We are in a very serious critical position in this county, and that's why I'm here. We are on the verge of a public safety emergency, because if I can't do my job, if I don't have the funding to do my job, bad people walk the streets. And there's nothing I can do about that. I need your help. The average cost per household in Iosco County is $5. a month. $5 a month makes it so I can do my job. I can do what's necessary to put bad people away so the good people are safe. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I'll share the podium.
Just one, thank you both for showing up, and nice to see you again, Jim.
Good to see you too, Steve. It's been a while.
Just a question, if the millage went through, what would your staffing look like in the future?
I would ask for at least one more administrative person. It would be nice to have another prosecutor, but I will tell you, my 2 administrative assistants are probably 2 of the hardest working people I know. They give me time. They work for free sometimes, and I don't ask them to, but they know how important their job is and how important it is that we're able to process these cases and get them through. I can tell you, 2 weeks ago, I had a week-long sexual assault trial. My entire office did the bare minimum outside of that trial. Everything was focused on getting that person in jail, hopefully in prison for, well, I usually say they're in prison until they retire. I'm hoping I'm dead and my children are dead before he's even considered for parole. He did such horrible things. So with that, we now have a stack of warrants for us to review this thick. I looked at it this morning, which I'm guessing it's probably somewhere around 25 or 30 warrants that the police have turned in and we haven't had the opportunity to get to process, to get those people into the system and keep our citizens safe.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the operating millage? Do you have time for Mr. Eller to talk quickly about the EMS millage?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you for having us tonight. I'm Mike Eller, Director of Emergency Services for the county. I'm responsible for Iosco County 911, and recently with the new responsibilities, emergency management, Sean Bowers, Supervised Sean Bowers, our emergency manager, and then I also oversee EMS now. It was a change that we made earlier this year. So Ray Bruning, who's also here with us tonight, is the new EMS operations manager. So earlier this year, the county took over operations for Iosco County EMS. Prior to this year, it was managed by MMR. They had been responsible for the department for 20-plus years. Up until roughly 2019, they did a very fine job. After 2019, a lot of EMS agencies in the nation started to suffer, and Iosco County was one of them. We normally have a staff of 12 full-time paramedics and 12 full-time EMTs. Currently, we are short 7 paramedics and 1 EMT. With that, our current budget for our current staffing levels, we're at a deficit of $391,000. And that deficit was not highlighted dramatically enough to raise alarms with the county until we took over. So Jamie looked at the budget, quickly identified that we were operating at a deficit, and then did some more digging and found we had been operating at a deficit since before 2018. We realized quickly that it was time to take over operations, and that's exactly what we did. Ray and I and Jamie, we've been working very hard at the budget to look at what we need to do to get the department back to where it was in 2019 and before, where we were operating with 4 to 5 ALS units every shift, every day, and some occasionally sixth unit to help out with calls during peak hours. Our current millage is 0.6, and it expires this year. Moving forward, we're on the August 2nd ballot, we're going to ask for 1.613. We went out 3 decimal points because we don't want to ask for a penny more than what we need. This What this new, if this passes, the new revenue, what it'll help do is offset the deficit. It'll eliminate the deficit that we have, the $391,000. It'll also pay for the additional gas and oil prices that we're all incurring, but as you can imagine, our ambulances run a lot of miles. They're on constantly, they use a lot of gas, and we do a lot of oil changes, so we have to cover those additional costs. Also, it needs to pay for the additional staffing. It's, well, to get us back to the levels that we need to be at, the 7 additional paramedics, the 1 EMT, and make sure our part-timers spots are also filled. And then it will have wage increases for all our employees, current and new, to bring them up to a standard of where they deserve to be today. Our current EMTs start out at $13 an hour, and our paramedics start out at $17 an hour. Extremely low. We're an average of $4 an hour less than the surrounding communities. Also, I'll back up a hair. Our millage, the surrounding counties, their millage rates are over 1 mil. They're averaging, I believe, around 1.4 mils. So this will bring us more in line with what the surrounding counties are running for their current millages. In addition to the deficit, paying off covering the deficit, the gas and oil and the wages, our repair and maintenance costs have gone up. As you can imagine, it's just parts, materials, and labors to service the ambulances. And then the price of ambulances, if you've bought emergency equipment recently, police cars or fire trucks, you know that the prices on those have gone up and the lead time has gone up also. And it's no difference for the ambulances. So we've already quoted out, and we know there's going to be a price increase on those. So those are the 5 major items that this millage will help pay for. And it'll get our EMS back to a level where we know it operated well. Some of the things that we're doing today to still grow the department is Ray had started a ride-along program. He communicated with the local high schools and IRESA to invite students to ride along with the ambulances. These are students that are possibly interested in the medical field or EMS or paramedic, and we currently have 7 students that are taking turns riding along with the ambulances. Several of them have expressed their interest in becoming an EMT or a paramedic in the future. And this is excellent because these are students or people from our community that have a vested interest in our community, and if we were to hire them, they would likely stay in our community and stay hired with us versus leaving to go to another community, which is sometimes what happens is we'll hire someone from outside of our community, they'll work for us for a little bit and then find another place where they can get a better wage and they'll leave us. And we feel that if we can have a competitive wage and hire people from our community, we got a better chance of having them stay here. In addition to that ride-along program, currently today, if you want to go through an EMT or a paramedic course, you have to go outside of Oscoda County to receive those courses. Sometimes people struggle to leave our community to go to school or even to pay for them. So what we want to do, Ray is licensed to be able to instruct an EMT course. So he's been working for a long time on starting his own EMT course where we can get people licensed, and we'll hold that course here in Oscoda County for our citizens and citizens in the surrounding communities so they can come here and have an EMT course. And then, of course, obviously hire them if they're interested in working for Oscoda County. So that, again, is training and hiring people from our community so they're more likely to stay here. We have had several people contact us that are interested in sponsoring those students. So if a family or a student is struggling to consider paying for that EMT course, we will likely be able to have that course paid for them so there won't be any expense to them, which is another great thing that we can do for them. The county already, and we will continue to pay for the paramedic course. So if you're an EMT and you're employed by Oscoda County EMS, we will pay for you to go to the paramedic course. The closest paramedic course that we work with a lot is in Saginaw. And so we would pay for that course. It's roughly an 18-month course, and then, of course, employ them afterwards. And that's what we want is paramedics in our rigs. When the paramedic is on the rig, it's an advanced life support rig. Today, because we're short on paramedics, not all of our ambulances are running with paramedics on them. They'll have an EMT on them. So it's a basic life support unit. A basic life support unit is very valuable. They can do a lot of life-saving measures, and they provide an excellent service. But we want paramedics on all our rigs like we used to have in 2019 and before. A paramedic can do additional things. They can push drugs. So if you have a severe injury and you need pain medication, to help move you onto the cot and get you to the hospital, they can push pain medications. If you're having a heart attack, they can push life-saving drugs for heart attacks or stroke. If you're having a airway blockage, an EMT can do airway management, but a paramedic has more tools and more things that they can do to open up your airway. So we want paramedics on all our rigs. We definitely value our EMTs, but we want to have a paramedic on all our rigs so we can offer the best service possible to our citizens. And the last thing I want to mention is sometimes when we talk to community leaders or citizens, they ask us about ALS and BLS transfers. These are transfers out of the hospital where we're taking patients from Tawas Hospital to a higher level of care, usually downstate. And sometimes they ask questions like, can we stop doing the ALS or BLS transfers? That way those ambulances can stay within the county and service our citizens. And I just want to explain that those ALS and BLS transfers are not a bad thing. They're a good thing. Those citizens, or those people, those patients that we're taking out of Tawas Hospital down to Saginaw or U of M or somewhere else to a higher level of care, those are our citizens. Those are our loved ones. Those are our neighbors. We're helping them get to a higher level of care. Tawas Hospital would love to have cardiac surgeons at Tawas Hospital, ortho surgeons at Tawas Hospital. They don't. They try to get them there. Occasionally they do have them there, but more often than not, they don't have that higher level of care there. So we want our loved ones, if they're in need of that higher level of care, we want to be able to transfer them down to another hospital. Also, the money that is generated, the revenue from billing the insurance company on an ALS or BLS transfer, when we transport a patient to a higher level of care, it generates 3 to 4 times more money than what the revenue we receive from a local emergency call. So versus our ambulance going to a local house and transporting them to the hospital, that's 3 to 4 times less revenue than what we get from an ALS transfer. So when we take that patient and have that transfer, we generate that additional revenue. That additional revenue helps pay for those additional ambulances. If we didn't do those transfers, we would likely only be able to afford 2 to 3 ambulances. Under normal conditions, with those transfers, we can afford 4, 5, 6 ambulances. So that ambulance is only out of the county 3 to 4 hours. That means it's in our county 20 to 21 hours. They're helping provide a better service, not only for having more ambulances in our county, but it's also transporting our loved ones from the hospital to a higher level of care. So the ALS and BLS transfers are not a bad thing. And one other note on it is if they were to ever be upgraded to a stat transfer, which is another type of transfer, that's a really, really critical patient. So if we said, nope, we're not doing ALS or BLS transfers, that person that needs that higher level of care is eventually going to degrade and start to suffer in the hospital. The physician will upgrade it to a stat transfer, and they do occasionally even now. And if they upgrade it to a stat transfer, by state law, we have to treat that like a 911 call. So they will call central dispatch and say, I have a stat transfer, and we have to treat that like it's a 911 call. The Iosco County EMS cannot refuse to take that transfer. They have to take it by Michigan state law. So we want to do these transfers. They're good for our people. They're good for our revenue. And frankly, we don't have a choice. So I just wanted to explain that about the transfers because they have been a topic when talking with some community leaders occasionally. That's all I have unless you have any questions for me.
Anybody have any questions for Mike? This time?
Mike, oh, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, thanks for coming tonight. You said 1.613
1.613.
mils is what you're requesting?
Correct. Yep.
Well, as you probably remember, several years ago, on a previous board that I was part of, we had some concerns about response times with MMR. So I, for one, am happy that the county is taking over this service. Fortunately, the county already owned the ambulances, so you have that. I guess my concern is, I know we're experiencing the problem being able to hire people. I just read an article where the DNR is offering $15 an hour for seasonal staff in their parks. We're trying to hire people, part-time people, to help our DPW maintain our parks, and you know, we're going to have to increase that, I think, in order to attract people. You mentioned that part of this millage will pay down your deficit. Will it provide enough funding going forward to be able to increase those salaries enough to attract new people? You said you're short, I think, you said 6?
Total of 8 employees, 7 paramedics, and one EMT.
So will this provide enough revenue to increase wages to be able to attract the people you're going to need?
Yes, what we budgeted in our mock-up budget to come up with this millage amount, we looked at the surrounding communities and what they were paying for their employees, and we budgeted in enough to be certainly competitive, likely more than what they're paying, of course. And so, yes, that number is in there. So, yes, we will become competitive.
Thank you.
Jamie, did you
I had
have?
seen on social media that there was an advertisement for a Zoom meeting that's going to be informational. Has that happened already?
Correct. I should have mentioned that during my part. Thursday at 3:30, there's a Zoom meeting and an also in-person meeting. It's at the same time at the courthouse for anyone in the public that has any questions. They'll listen to our presentations that, like you heard tonight, but then we'll answer questions. We're hoping to video that and disperse it out to the community, because really we just want to educate the public on what we're asking for and why. So that's the first one. If it's successful and we seem to get participation, we're hoping to have more and maybe spread out throughout the county, in different parts of the county.
I did get an email from Nancy after inquiring about that meeting that has all the language for the ballots that's going to be on there, and I'd be happy to share it with all the board members and if anybody wants to stop in.
We'd love to have any of you or anyone from the public come and ask questions, and that's what we're here for. Anyone can email me at any time or call my office, and I'd be happy to answer questions as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I had one last question. I wanted to just ask a question, but first I want to thank you, Ms. Sobleski, for your help since you joined the county in turning around what I think was a disaster when we outsourced our EMS service to MMS. It did a terrible disservice to the residents of this county. And I imagine that some of the attrition that occurred is what you're describing, Mike, for what we're trying to now replace. And it's an unfortunate problem, for sure. I'm glad we're coming back out of that. I just wanted to thank you for that, and I was really happy to see that article in the newspaper about that progress you made.
Well,
So
thank you.
for that. Yes.
It wasn't an easy decision for anyone, and I do personally believe that the team we have in place now is the best possible team between Mike and Ray. And you talked about bringing in employees. We also have to try to retain the ones that we still have that haven't left. And I've had several say to me that the only reason I haven't gone to another county is because Ray Bruning is my boss now. So I'm really confident that we did make the right decision. Like Mike said, it worked well for a lot of years, but especially in the summer of 2021, there was a mass exodus, and we had to figure out why that happened. And we do feel like we made the right decision going forward.
You mentioned that you set your millage rate exactly at what you needed, but then you also mentioned saving money from that millage rate.
From the operating millage? The saving money will be in the form of capital improvement plan, just enough to make sure. What I did was poll several other counties, the ones that were closest to our size and population, and look at what they levied or what they considered for their capital improvements per year. So yes, there is that dollar amount figure. Some years we might spend all of that money in one year. Some year we might save it for a larger project, but that's what I meant by saving, is to come up with some sort of capital improvement plan so our facilities never get into the condition that they're in right now, which is very terrible if you've walked through, especially on a rainy day.
We've had similar problems here. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
No, thank all of you for
Yeah,
having us.
thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Good luck.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we are moving on to our second public presentation, and that is the Iasco Aranac, sorry, I can't read, District Library Millage Renewal for 2022. Yeah, no, I can't read, it's too dark. Okay.
Hi. Thank you for letting me come. My name is Jen Donner. I'm the new district director for the Iasco Aranac District Library, and I started in November. Stephanie Olson retired in December, so we had a little overlap so she could kind of show me kind of the ropes, because Iasco Aranac District Library is a little unique in how we're run. And so today I'm here to talk about our millage renewal, because that seems like everybody's doing millages and renewals right now. Ours is also on August 2nd. And I did hand out a little renewal frequently asked questions form. If I missed you, I'm sorry. There are some extra copies over there on the table. Also, every branch of our library also has a copy of this. I did email this, so I was hoping that it was going to get added to your packets. Okay. So this is a renewal, and we did this 10 years ago, and we're just asking for the same amount. This is not an increase in any way. It's just to help us keep funding the libraries. And I know that here in Oscoda, Robin has been doing a really great job. She's brought a lot more people into the library. She's doing a lot of great different programming. She's working with community leaders here in town to try to help literacy rates and things. And so she's just one of the many great librarians that we have out of all of our 8 branches of our libraries. And so we want to help continue that and help increase what we can provide to the communities. And so let's just talk a little bit about the things that we do with the millage money that we already receive. So 50% of what we get, we distribute to the different libraries. There's 5 in Oscoda County and 3 in Aranac County. And the funding from Iasco County gets divided between the 5 libraries, and the 3 in Aranac get the funding from that millage. And that money is used by the city council to help pay for your staff and to help pay for utilities and things if you need to do them for the building. The 50% that we keep basically pays for everything else. We pay for the internet, we pay for the Wi-Fi, we pay for the books, we pay for the audiobooks, we pay for adult programming, we pay for children's programming, we pay for all the substitutes that need, if the library needs the substitutes, we pay for that. We pay for training for substitutes. We also provide funding for if the librarians want to do any kind of training themselves, if they want to attend conferences, which I know Robin is already excited about. Michigan Library Association conference that's coming up in Port Huron this year. We were lucky this year. We go through a program called E-rate with the federal government, and it helps communities like ours pay for internet services for our libraries. And we were lucky enough, it pays for 80% of the bill, so we only pay 20%. And this year we were able to lock in 5 years at a really, really great decreased rate from what we had been paying previously. So for the next 5 years, we're going to be paying the same amount. And we are also able to increase the upload and download speed for our Wi-Fi, which I know that people really, really love. This last year, There was a grant where we updated all of the broadband wiring in the libraries. And so for like Oscoda County, or for the Oscoda Library, I know that one patron was really excited because he tested how far the Wi-Fi goes out, and it goes all the way to the end of the parking lot. He just really thought that was the greatest thing. And because of COVID, a lot of people were having to stay home and do their work from their house. And it allowed people to just come sit in the parking lot, even if the library is closed, do their schoolwork, do their work, whatever. So we're still providing a service for the libraries. We try to we also provide services to, locals, homeschool families, a lot of the colleges and universities around here, their kids also use the library. So we just, we offer a lot of services, and this renewal, like I said, is just a renewal. It's not an increase. It's the same amount for another 10 years. And on the second page is our ballot language. And because of state law, our ballot language will be at the very bottom on the back of the ballot. We're always last, just because of what kind of governmental entity we are. And that's really it. A lot of the other stuff is already on this fact sheet. We're also posting this on social media like Facebook and, I talked to all the friends groups that have gone to all sorts of city council meetings and counties. Jamie and I have been at multiple meetings together. So, are there any questions?
Anybody have any questions?
In a world that everyone is asking for an increase, why aren't you?
Because of that very reason right there. Everybody is trying to get a millage through right now. And Stephanie and I talked, and she'd already gotten this ball rolling before I came in, because we had to have the ballot language ready to go in the spring. So her decision was, I'm not going to ask for more than we need. And right now, we're doing okay. We don't need more. And we're able to budget what we need. We luckily just put a down payment on a new delivery vehicle, which are super hard to find. Stephanie's been trying to buy a new one for the last 2 years, and we just lucked out, and now we're just waiting for it to show up. So what they were talking about, trying to get vehicles right now, fire trucks and, EMS, ambulances, everything, I know it's really hard. We had to ask our board to bypass the bid process so that I could just look around and see what was available. And we were just super lucky, because I was thinking we weren't going to get another vehicle until next year. So, but I know that's a little more than what you asked.
No, that's fine, thank you.
But yeah,
Yes, detail,
that's exactly why. We're okay. We can provide great programming, and I've heard we've been having some really great turnout with the programs that we've been providing. There was one event at one of our other libraries in Omer. There were 45 people there. In East Tawas in May, we had a Holocaust survivor lady who came. There was like 30, 40 people there. They had to keep moving chairs in because there was just so many. And I think that shows that the community's ready to get out and get involved and, kind of enjoy life again. So I hope that the libraries provide that to the community.
Okay,
Well, thank you.
thank you. Anybody else have any other questions? All right, thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for coming
And
in.
if you have any questions, you can call us, you can email me, or you can talk to Robin.
All right.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now moving on to our public comment section of the agenda. We do have 2 public comment sections. The first public comment section is reserved for items that are on the agenda. You need to fill out a comment card. Do we have any comment cards for the first public comment?
Yes, I have one.
Okay.
Rick Koenig.
The charger's not working, too. This is not working. I got my computer plugged in, and it's not working.
Oh, apparently the charger that Jamie's plugged into is not working, so her computer might die, and she's the one who does the timer.
Can she
So-
reach over this one?
I don't know. So with that, if you could introduce yourself and then indicate which item on the agenda that you would like to just discuss.
Yeah,
Rick.
my name's Rick Koenig, and I'm here to talk about the EIC Director's extension,
Okay,
okay?
all right, just wait until,
I
sorry.
got, no, his
You have-
timer started.
Yeah, okay, go ahead, sorry, I didn't know.
Okay. Before that position was hired, the previous supervisor stated that the cost for an EIC director would be at the low end 30 to 35,000, high end 60 to 65,000. He's making 120,000, so it's double what was projected. I also want to say that an EIC director is not required to maintain an EIC board. It didn't exist until 2020. And I'm going to get into the hammerhead comment. You telling me no? Stop my time if I'm.
If you're going to start directing into a personal tone, then the answer is no. We're discussing a contract right now, so.
Okay. Then I'd like to say something that the EIC director had sent to me. And it says, "Things are going to change. Be part of the change or die opposing it. Your choice." Second one was, "Parking garage on Furtaw Field. Ha, ha, ha." And the last one was, "And it's not a parking lot, it's a 4-story parking garage, baby. Big, ugly concrete structure. Perfect spot for it, right?" I can't believe the board is even considering giving a 3-year extension, which would put his total pay to over $750,000 that I feel would be much better spent in this community, for everything that we want to do, instead of paying it, instead of extending his contract. I think his character is shown to a lot of people what he's about. We need maintenance at the beach, the basketball court, the skate park needs to be fixed up. There's so many things that people want to see done, and to spend $750,000 in 6 years to one person is ridiculous. And if you add the 2 extra years that he could be getting, that's $1 million. $1 million of taxpayers' money to pay one person whose position didn't exist before 2020. Is that the best way to spend the township taxpayers' money? Who else in this town makes $120,000 a year? The chief of police? No. Any of you guys? Nope. Probably all you together don't even make that much. It's ridiculous. I don't think the town people support it at all. And I think you need to take into consideration, if you agree to this, what could happen. And I said it before, and I don't like saying it, but that recall is not a threat anymore. So if you're not going to follow what the people want, then it's up to you, but we will do a recall. $1 million is ridiculous, in my opinion and a lot of people's opinion. So I suggest the board really think about if they're going to extend this contract based on everything, including that hammerhead comment, which was in the newspaper.
Okay. Thank you, Rick. All right, okay, that was it on the public comment cards?
No, I got handed one more.
Okay,
This was for second, right? Marcia Gale.
okay, in regard to which topic on the agenda?
That would be Todd Richardson contract renewal.
Hi, I'm not used to public speaking at all, so I'm going to make it short and sweet. But I agree with the gentleman who spoke before me 100%. And I think I'm a former special ed teacher, and my son works for 911 in Bay County, and I think that the money could be spent on that much more than him.
Just direct your comments to the board, please.
Okay,
Okay?
sorry.
I'll just remind you, thank you.
He doesn't have any vested interest in Oscoda because he doesn't live here. I'm sorry, is that too close to? Sorry.
You need to stay away from personal, okay?
Okay.
you're talking about a position, and just if you
Okay.
could direct your comments to the board and refrain from.
Yeah,
Okay?
okay.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just about done, really. But I really hope that the contract is not renewed. And I think that a lot of people do too. The money could be spent someplace else much better. And like you said, you people don't earn what he does altogether, I'm sure. But anyway, thank you for letting me speak.
Okay, thank you. All right, is that the end of the public comment cards?
I have one more. Pam Loveless.
Okay, all right, Pam? It's as long as it's on an agenda item that we're discussing. Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Pam Lovelace. I wasn't expecting to speak on this topic, but I can't sit in my seat any longer. So I'm going to give you a different perspective from someone that's new to the community, perspective from a new community member and a developer, okay? In coming in to Oscoda and dealing with the township and looking at the offerings that Oscoda has, I know from experience dealing with other communities as well, how important it is to have that position for developers, to have one person to be able to go to ask questions, to look at what's available, to get information, and to learn the process. Coming from me, the process for Oscoda is different than any other area that I have worked in. So there is a huge learning curve. And the public may not see everything that goes into that position, but it is not an easy job. Not only are you held accountable by various boards, but you're also held accountable by the developers, because we rely on that information. And if information isn't right or straight, you know, it really affects our bottom line and our time, which is very valuable. And, you know, I understand that there is history in Oscoda that I am not privy to, but I will say I can only speak on my own experience, and that experience is that Todd has been a straight shooter. He has taken questions from me late at night, early in the morning, on weekends, just on business. And I can only speak on business because that's the only interactions that I have. So if anybody else has other interactions, I can't speak to that. But I just wanted to say that with regard to his salary, that is on par. That is on par. Believe it or not, do the research, go community by community for the amount of work. Look at what Oscoda needs. And it's not going to be a magic wand. It doesn't happen overnight. And, you know, even as a developer, it hasn't been easy for me, but I don't stop fighting. I don't stop trying. And if you don't have someone in a full-time position dedicated to bringing in business and bringing in change to the town, that town's going to go down. You know, and that's my own personal opinion. Everybody in the back row
You're
can
addressing the
disagree
board.
with me,
Please.
but I just want to say my 2 cents.
Thank you. Okay, remember you're addressing the board.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name, the second speaker. I was listening and I didn't write that one down. And I usually keep track.
Marcia Gale.
Okay, thank you, Marcia. Okay, so that does conclude our first public comment section. We do have a second public comment section that is at the end of the agenda. So if you would like to speak at that time, you do not need to fill out a comment card, and it doesn't need to be an agenda item, okay? So now moving on to our consent agenda. First on, we have the approval of the regular meeting minutes from May 23rd. I know that Josh did send out some revisions earlier today, and I'm assuming those got uploaded to the packet?
Those were just sent to the board members.
Okay, all right. So the revised are not in the packet.
Correct.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on the revisions that were sent out? Comments?
I didn't have a chance to check my emails after about noon. I do mine in the morning. I had sent an email to Josh about an item, and I'm assuming that's what was changed.
Yes, I had the correction from you for those invoices for Rowe, and I had
Right.
some corrections presented by Ms. Richards as well that went into those updated ones.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, so did everybody have a chance to review those, or would you like to remove that item and put those meeting minutes on the next agenda?
I didn't get a chance to look at them.
If that was a change, that was what I had suggested. It just listed as invoices, and I suggested it be called row invoices. I think there were 4 of
Right,
them.
and I had a couple corrections in regard to some motions.
Yep.
So
Okay.
if those corrections have been made, I would
Those
move
were the main changes.
I would move to approve the,
Okay, so you're okay with keeping that on, all right?
that on,
So
with
then we
corrections.
have, under finance, we have payment of bills. We have the prepaid check run from May 31st in the amount of $78,053.82. Were there any questions on those?
Yes, I have a question. If you would look at page 20 of the packet. This is for the May 31st. Under the sewer fund, we have, it says service sales / water truck Zubik motor repair, invoice 231726 for $584. If you go to page 27, of the packet, for the June 14th check run, we have service sales, water truck, Zubik Motors, invoice 231726 for $584. It would appear we're paying this twice.
I believe that's one of the checks that I just recently got back because it was an overpayment.
Can you repeat that, Jamie? Because it was what?
It was overpaid.
I
so-
see.
Yeah, it was paid twice, so they returned it.
So it was paid twice. Okay.
All right, any other questions on that run? All right, then we also have the prepaid June 7th. $94,056.69. Sorry, it's really dark in here. I'm having a hard time reading the numbers. But any questions on those? Okay, hearing none. We have the check run from June 14th in the amount of $84,090.23. Do we have any questions on those? And then we have the DWRF checking report. Are there any comments on those? Or that, I should say?
Yeah, on the, be on page 31, the CWSRF Row Pro Service, the invoice doesn't have the correct invoice number on there. It should be 103151.
What one do I have? I don't see it on there.
It has just 103 and then 590-00010.004. It's on page 31.
Oh, I see it there. Okay. Oh, maybe there wasn't enough room to stick it all on that line. I'll check it, Bill.
Yeah,
Thank you.
the amount is correct for the invoice 103151.
Yeah, it looks like there wasn't enough room on that line for it to finish all of the invoice in that space in the report before it cuts over to the fund number.
Well, but if
I'll
you-
make sure that's there.
Yeah, if you look at page 33, you have the same thing, row invoice, and then it has the full invoice in there.
Yep.
So that was my only comment.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and then last, we have the CWSRF, DWRF checking report. Any questions or comments on those? Okay. So with that, is there a, with those couple of comments, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, is there support?
Support, Spencer.
All right, there's a motion by Mr. Cummings and support by Mr. Spencer to approve the consent agenda with those couple notes, or questions, I should say, from Bill. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wushtabarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to the subcommittee reports and project updates. First on, we have the EIC Director update, Todd.
Yes, I'm here. Good evening again. What a nice segue after the public comments. So I'd like to get a few things, I think, clarified first before I go over my report. I sort of take offense to the fact of public people say I'm not vested in this community. It is true
I don't think that this is the time or the place for that, Todd. I'm sorry. But right now, you're giving an EIC report to the board. So I think that you handed out a flyer. I would like to just to keep on task.
Okay, so no defense of my position?
I don't think it's appropriate. I sit up
Okay.
here on a regular basis and can't defend myself. So again, this is not the time or the place. I'm sorry.
Interesting. Okay, then we'll move on.
Okay, thank you.
So my salary is what it is. I'm not ashamed of that because I think I've delivered, and we'll get into that now if you like then. So since I took the position over in November 1st of 2019, I've tracked new business startups in the Township of Oscoda. So from the start of 2020 through the end of 2021, actually you had 9 new businesses start in our township. I'll remind everybody that that was also during the time when COVID was running rapid around the country and lots of communities were losing businesses, and we added 9 new businesses to our community. I think that's one in the win column for us. Since 2020, we've had numerous new development or otherwise rehab projects where people are investing in our town. I have 6 in the downtown, and I've calculated and come up with 4 in the greater township area. So 6 additional projects that are wins for our community during a time when COVID is running rapid and people are closing doors, not opening doors. Again, I think that's a win for the community. I won't take accolades that it was all of my doing. I think it's a system approach. So our planning commission is better. We're working on better policies, better resolutions. The IC committee is working differently than the former DDA. Economic development is a team sport, so I'm not here to claim that those are all of my personal wins, but it's certainly indicative of what we are doing as a community. And last data point that I provided to you, when my compensation gets called into question, I think it's all about return on investment. Those are all soft return on investments. It's hard for me to put a direct number on that, but what I can put a direct number on is the sale of township property that is resulting in projects in our town. And those numbers are to date, after 2.6 or 7 years on the job, sale of properties that equal $1,281,000. That's coming back to the community in the form of hard dollars. Those are real dollars. Projected investment dollars is what usually economic improvement directors or community development directors get graded on, is the associated investment in those numbers. And we're looking at a projected investment of $56 million in our community. Pretty good return on your investment, I'd say. And the last fact that I will present is the actual township tax revenue. So there's the revenue piece where you're getting the revenue on the sale of the property, and then there's the annuity revenue, basically, that you're getting on your real estate taxes. And that number I'm presenting is $86,136.91 on an annual basis, and that's just the township's piece. That isn't the real estate bills. That's just what the township will keep out of those tax collections.
All right, is there any, does that conclude your presentation?
No, I have a few more items if you'll allow. Just general updates. The Art Walk is scheduling their reception, or has scheduled their reception for June 24th from 6 to 8. We will be putting the pedestal post in place the week of the 20th, likely. If I can get started earlier on it, I will. And an update, and Mr. Spencer had asked me earlier about the Miles Building mural, and we've talked to the building owner, and that's just a no-go on his part. So we'll not talk about that anymore and consider that issue closed. The social district, we pretty much have all of our signs up. I'm going to put a few extra signs out this week with the help of Mr. Hamlin. But at this point, the three businesses are waiting for their permits. So they're not waiting on us. They're waiting on the state liquor control to give them their social district permits. A reminder that the RRC certification presentation is July 15th, and that will be 11 a.m. at Township Hall. And the next thing we're going to get heavy into is the RRC priority sites. So the EIC will be coming back to the board with prioritization of sites and your support for those sites.
Okay, I had a question on the social district. Has the Liquor Control Commission indicated like how long it's going to take to process those? Have you heard, or
No,
those applications?
No, it's up to the business owners to submit those applications. It's my understanding they all have.
Okay.
And one business has been approved, but has not been, they haven't received it, at least as of Friday. They hadn't received it in the mail yet. One of the other businesses is pending, and I'm not sure about Tate's.
Okay, but all three you think of, they've all submitted?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anybody else have any questions for Todd?
Yeah, just one. Todd, wasn't the holdup for the three taverns, they were waiting for, they have to have inspections, which my understanding means they have to pay $70, and somebody comes up and sees that they have a tavern in order to get, and they're waiting for somebody to come up to do that?
I don't know if that's true, but what I do know to be true is that our representative from the Liquor Control suggested that they apply for their normal permits first. And once those were approved, then follow up and apply for your special, the social district permit, so that there wasn't any confusion and that a permit didn't get denied because you didn't have your primary permit already. So obviously that process is taking more time than one would have thought.
Okay. That was what one of the business owners told me, was it?
Yeah, I mean.
How could you even apply if you didn't have an establishment? That
Yeah,
doesn't make no sense,
but it's just another $70 fee they have to pay.
Oh.
And I think they've all paid it, but.
All right, any other questions for Todd?
Hey, Todd, I have a question along with the social district. Is the EIC or the Planning Commission, to your knowledge, looking at bringing in ordinance changes to our ATV and snowmobile because we're locked out downtown? I just visited a community back home where I'm from in Indiana, a little town called Gas City, Indiana, and they passed a ATV golf cart ordinance. And talking with their town mayor, who is an old friend of mine, it's actually his son now, they've increased their traffic downtown by 40%, kind of 9 months a year, for using the businesses and bars and restaurants and the Moose. And they also have every Saturday through the summer, they call it Carts in the Park, where they have bands, outdoor theater, and there's 200-300 carts every Saturday, just with traffic and ATVs. You know, I'd kind of like to know where we're at, or if it's even on the radar to be able to get these places or these things downtown. We have a lot of people, we have a lot of trails here. I mean, I use them, but you can't get past the hilltop.
Correct. And so I'm glad you asked. If some of you may know, when I first arrived here 2.5 years ago, it was one of the first items on my list of, gosh, why aren't we doing this? So I've been advocating for this since I got here. It has now been added to our Parks and Rec plan. So if you go read the latest version of that, you'll find it in there, which basically opens up now the opportunity for us to start pursuing that. I will tell you that the MEDC was in here to pay us a visit today and we met with their regional community manager and our basically local community development specialist. Well, she's not local, but she's our first layer of contact. And I inquired about getting connected with the right person at the DNR so we could have these trails opened up to get us to public roads. I have a road strategy sort of figured out, at least from the Grass Lake area, to get us into the downtown. F41 could be a little more challenging. So the regional specialists or manager and myself will be working diligent on that in the coming weeks. And I will also tell you I'm pitching the DNR to let us have gate access or what's the term for the collection areas on the trailhead. I'd like to see us get a trailhead designation for Old Orchard Park. We have gate number 2 that sits about 30 yards, a straight shot up a paved road to Trail 6. There's no reason we shouldn't have our designation there that would draw more campers in if they could just leave their equipment right where they're camping and drive their machines directly to a trailhead. So I'm going to be addressing that soon as well.
Okay, thank you. And it just, my knowledge of Iosco County is the county is open to all of this activity. The roads are open. But we, as the township, have closed them with an ordinance. The M Road is an issue, that's state, but you can cross it. But there's no reason why we can't, if we choose to change the ordinance, be on F41 or any county road. So we
have to close the gap from the trailheads to town so that we can then change our ordinances to allow those vehicles on our local roads. Even if we change those ordinances today, that would be fine, but we still wouldn't be able to get there because we got to come across state land. And we're in an area where they permit snowmobiles, but come summertime, they close those trails off to ATV or wheeled vehicles. So once we get past that little hurdle, then I think we'd probably work with the Planning Commission and then come to the township to consider revising road access resolutions and do what we need to do on that side of it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Then, Steve, you added the Cedar Lake Improvement Board update?
Yes. So there's going to be a special meeting of the Cedar Lake Improvement Board, of which I sat on as behalf of this board as a representative there. The meeting is going to be held, the purpose is the board is going to hold a special meeting to discuss property acquisition in support of the Cedar Lake Watershed Management Plan, pay its bills, and conduct a general business meeting that may come before the board. The meeting is going to be held next Friday, June 17th, 2022 at 4 p.m. at the Alcona County Courthouse, 106 5th Street, Harrisville, Michigan, 48750 in the Commissioner's Room. So what I just wanted to say is it involves the purpose of land with public money. I wanted to make the public aware in Oscoda Township that meeting is going to take place.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the superintendent's report. First on is transition of interim legal counsel to designated legal counsel. Tammy?
At the Township special meeting dated December 21st, 2021, the board voted to hire Ms. Lisa Hamame as the interim legal counsel for Oscoda Township. Ms. Hamame has been working very diligently for the last 6 months approximately and has proven to be an excellent addition to our team and a very valuable asset to the township. At this time, I would like to ask that the board approve Ms. Hamame as the township's designated legal counsel.
Hey, is there any questions or discussion on this item?
I have a question, just in the terms of billing and overall work ethic of Lisa. How is our staff with the work ethic, and then also just a comparison of bills over a few months?
So I put together Lisa's first 5 bills, and that total for all 5 is $17,340. Compared to previous attorney, first 5 months was $38,412.75. I asked her specifically, I said, how come these bills are so much lower than what we're used to? Because if you look back, even attorney before, I mean, we've been paying some fairly high bills. And she just flat out said, I like to sleep at night. So she's efficient at everything she does, and she provides a lot of information, a lot more information, and doesn't charge for every piece of information, if that makes sense.
So overall satisfaction with Lisa
Excellent.
and you?
She's great.
Thank you.
Do we need to put her name plus the company that she works for, or just her name is sufficient?
I can add her specific, actually, the company, but I thought it would be her specifically because they do have numerous attorneys that do work there. Maybe her name plus the actual
Because we
name of
pay the
business.
actual business, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So her name at something law firm.
Yep.
Great, with designated.
Okay.
Any other discussion, or is there a motion?
I would make a motion to approve Ms. Lisa Hamama as the township's legal counsel on a full-time basis.
Support, Sutton.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Palmer and support by Mr. Sutton. Is there any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Worcester,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to number 2, Economic Improvement Director Contract Renewal. Tammy?
As a recommendation from the Economic Improvement Committee, I was asked to request that the Township Board extend Mr. Dickerson's contract for economic development services. Your packet contains a revised contract by the Township's attorney with a 3-year extension, an increase in salary of 3% per year for 3 years with an option of 2 additional 1-year terms. Mr. Dickerson has had great success getting the township RRC certified and helping move the township forward in economic success. I would ask that the board consider approving Mr. Dickerson's contract as presented.
So I'm assuming we're going to have some discussion, questions, thoughts?
I got a few questions. And I provided some information to the board today via email. And I'm not sure I have an extra copy if anybody didn't get a chance to look at it. But what comparisons did the committee use to determine the annual salary? And I don't know if anybody, it doesn't look like anybody's here from the committee.
From the EIC committee?
Jeff, yep, and Bob. Okay. Okay. So you don't know if there was any research that was done? Okay. Okay. I noticed the job description got added to the agenda, or to the, board packet. Thank you very much, because I didn't see that in there. What I did is, over the last couple months, because this kind of kept getting kicked down the road a little bit, I started reaching out. I have a listserv on the treasurer's listserv. It put out there and asked if anybody else had an EIC director, what their wages were, what their budgets were, what their job descriptions were. And in looking, and what I provided to the board today was the city of Manistee, who is RRC certified, and they have actually gone through their first renewal process. Their annual budget is $23 million, and they pay their EIC person $20,000 annually. The second person that I reached out to was a friend of mine, Roberta, from Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is the second largest city in the state of Michigan. Their budget is $598 million, and they pay their EIC director, assistant director, $95,000 to $121,000. The city of Bay City advertised recently for an EIC person. Their budget is $23 million, and the annual pay was $45,000 to $50,000. Oscoda Townships, budget is $19 million, and we are currently paying ours just over $100,000. North Baltimore, Ohio, $6 million budget, and they're currently paying their person $12,000,000, or $12,000.
a
And
good
I
one.
will, the reason I put North Baltimore, Ohio in there is because Todd does currently work for them also. I've included the job descriptions, which, by looking at some of them, were a little bit, job descriptions had a lot more details in them, where ours really doesn't. And our job description really goes back to a time when we were hiring Todd, and he's accomplished things. So some of those things really don't apply. And in the contract itself that's being presented, I feel like it's really super vague. And I think that those job description, we need to look at it before we sign any contract. And take the comparisons into consideration also. But I do appreciate everything you have done, because you have done a lot, and I get that. But I think with just the budget that we have compared to the budgets of these other people, that we need to bring it into some kind of different pay scale.
I have a couple comments. I wasn't here when the job was created, or the person was hired. I'm not looking at you, the person whatsoever. I'm looking at the job description and moving forward. A job was posted. It had certain goals and objectives in place. It had education requirements in place. It had previous experience in place. Again, I wasn't part of that interviewing process, so I'm not sure if those requirements were met or not met. So I actually asked in regard to whether or not we have the original resume or application, just so I could look at that. That being said, we also, I feel that the contract's a little vague in regard to some of the language of expectations. And we have, for instance, under consideration, that all, so it has the dollar amount, but then it just says all years based upon a work week sufficient enough to provide those services as would be typically expected of someone performing the services as generally described below and herein. There are no real work things identified in the contract. It all relates to a job posting and along with a resolution. The job posting was done in 2019, and some of those goals I do feel were achieved, and they were achieved with also the assistance of another entity, and that was a grant-funded position that I think actually, Todd, you were successful in getting or assisting to get the grant for. So I'm actually not looking at performance whatsoever and saying that you did a bad job or a good job or anything like that. I'm just saying that I feel that we need to have a better job description and expectations so that we can gauge output, I guess, and have it a little bit more. And I think some of this actually came on a conversation that, Steve, you mentioned in regard to the fact that you're a contracted employee and certain amount of time, that is required and so on. I just don't feel that that's identified whatsoever in our contract. So I just had some questions or concerns there, I guess. And then, people keep throwing around that that it's a huge pay. And I'm not saying it's not a huge pay, but the reason it's an additional pay is because we are not providing any kind of health care benefits, retirement, or anything else. And I did want to get clarification in regard to what that would possibly cost the township if we were going to offer somebody that, like a staff position. And Shelley, the assistant, the deputy clerk, indicated that yearly costs would be, and this is a single, if that employee was married, it would obviously go up. But that is roughly like $25,000 that it would cost. So we are, quote unquote, saving, we're expecting that person to provide all those things themselves, and that's why we're doing a contracted employee. So sometimes I believe, that's why the wage is higher than it would be if it was a staff position, because those costs would be baked in. So I just kind of wanted to clarify that. But that being said, when you look at the job posting, it did have a range. I feel that we hired above that range, and I wasn't part of the board at that time, so I don't know why that decision was made. But, you know, I do think we need to look at it now. So, again, I'm not, this has nothing to do with job performance, lack thereof, or anything else. It's just trying to quantify what we're paying for in a job, and in some ways to have a check and balance, I guess, is my thought process, so.
Just so you know, the clerk's office left off also Social Security insurance, which is $9,062. So that needs to be added to the roughly $24,271.
Okay, yeah, I mean,
So it
this was
is
actually
just a
done
little
as a help, I mean, I'm trying to tell
Yeah,
people
no,
the
I just
reason
wanted to
why
get the number right.
that a contracted employee gets paid more than an
Right.
employee, because people are using comparisons like our chief of police and other thing like that,
Right.
is because we are not paying that, you know, we are not having to pay that benefit package. So you know, that's the difference.
We're not paying FICA and/or any benefits.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, so again, that wasn't meant as a negative. It was trying to, but that being said, I still feel that we did a job posting in 2019, and that job has changed. And I just feel that we need to maybe sit down as a board and see, is the goal actually to have a contracted employee, or do we need another staff in-house on a 40-hour-a-week job? I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there, and now's the time to discuss that. So those were my thoughts. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw the idea out that the EIC director has reported to this board since he was hired. And this board has always had the opportunity to talk to him about his performance or his to-do list, a battle plan, whatever the future is that he's trying to work out, and maybe even coordinate with the EIC committee. But he also works with the EIC committee as well, which that gentleman that chairs that board is also somebody that he reports to. So there's multiple people watching Todd, and that committee doesn't just take orders from Todd, but also determines what the future actions are that they agree that they want to see happen too. And anything that's beyond that board scope comes to us. So I just want to make sure in the context of this discussion that it's portrayed that it isn't as though this person who's being paid some $120,000, $30,000 hasn't been managed. It's not the case. Whereas we have not held, 6-month audits on him and had him, do anything with elaborate. He provides updates to us periodically, which is almost every board meeting when he's around, or when he's not on vacation. So I feel like we do actually get information, and the EIC committee has been active. So I don't think there is nearly the question in my mind that you were sharing for you. But I also wanted to say that a contract this isn't a contract to build a car where you're looking for the exact right color, the exact right options, the exact right model. It's not the same thing. When you're contracting as a service provider in a form that like this, you're coming in with an ability. And the generalness that you're describing isn't wrong, because you want to be able to use that person in a wide variety of ideas and situations and just take full advantage of that person. And so I don't think, again, that what you're characterizing as vagary is wrong. I think it's actually to our benefit. It's not like the contract is actually, in my opinion, vague. It's not. I think it actually gives us the ability to do what we need to and what we've accomplished. I think the last 2 years plus has been an example of having set that properly. That's just my opinion. So.
I guess since I'm looking that way, Jeremy, do you have any comments?
No.
Okay. Josh?
I guess I would just be interested, did they offer any kind of completion on those comparisons?
I'm sorry, who's
When
they and-
we're looking for the ones you were able to get from Manistee and everything, are they paying, like, the one that did RRC, was that just paying somebody 20,000 to work on that project?
No, I included the job description. It's in
I
their
think what-
contract with their things. And they had hired them and paid them through the RRC process, and they've already been through one renewal process for that amount of money also, according to the finance director in Manistee.
And were we able to find out if they were able to actually bring in business during COVID?
I did not ask that question, but I can reach back out to Ed. I'm sure he would be happy to give me those details.
I didn't have the opportunity to review the email that you sent.
I didn't as it came in at 3:30, but my question would be, what's the value that those people created for the community? Because that's what I look at as value. And I will say one thing, I've talked to 3 developers personally, the latest being Mr. Aldridge from the Holiday Inn after our groundbreaking ceremony, and I spent about 2 hours with the man, with a group of people, and talked about the process. And I have to say that they were quite happy that we had somebody leading the charge, because if we didn't, I'm convinced after that conversation, a Merrill Lodge wouldn't have happened.
Right.
And that's all because we had that person in place working 100% on behalf of the township and the EIC committee growing this community. And that's what we need. We've been stagnant, well, and I can only speak until 1999, since I've been here, at least part-time, full-time since 2011. There's really not been a lot of action in this community besides Colette Air and Phoenix Composites. Honestly.
I don't dispute any of that, Steve, honestly.
So
And like I said-
I'm looking at value and what the gentleman does, or that position, and, or what the lady could do. It doesn't matter to me. It's performance and value, and when I look at these numbers, at a $56 million potential investments inside of 2.5 years, and 2 of those years plus years being COVID-related,
Yeah.
and adding to the tax rolls on an annual basis to Oscoda Township, not to the county, not to the state, of $86,000 as a start on an annual basis, once these projects are built, and selling the property, helping us sell these properties. I see the gentleman has done a fantastic job, especially getting us RRC compliant and certified. It's not a small task,
No, but Manistee did it for $20,000.
okay?
You
It's
wouldn't,
not the only thing he's been doing,
Well, and that's not the only thing they were doing either.
okay? Well,
And like I pointed out, in the ballpark of what the committee is asking to pay Todd is comparent to a city that has a budget of $598 million.
you
That
understand
we
the
don't
city
have
has
that
a
money.
much bigger tax revenue than a township, much larger.
Oh, I get that.
Any city does.
I completely understand that, which is why I'm just saying that we need to take into consideration what our overall budget is. Because here's a few things, and why I'm saying this is because we're having a hard time people getting to work in the DPW department. We're having a hard time finding people to work in the store and registration at Old Orchard Park. Old Orchard Park, this is no secret, is our cash cow. If something starts happening to that where we can't keep that open all week long to produce the money that we have been in the past, then we're going to be losing revenue. Now, and yes, we're gaining revenue by different businesses. I completely understand that too. But we have to look at the bigger picture. Does our overall budget really support that type of an annual budget? So, and I have to disagree. I don't think it does. I am not saying that Todd has not done a fantastic job. He has. He really has. I believe that. I truly do. I enjoy his enthusiasm. I always have. And I know that I've gone to different things and been included, and I appreciate all that he's done. But I truly believe that over $100,000 is too much.
You just said that we're having a hard time finding employees, and I think that's apparent to everyone here. Do you really think that we're going to find a replacement for 20K? Because I don't.
I'm not asking you to go to 20K. I'm not
Fair
saying
enough.
that at all.
But you're saying that they got it done for 20K, indicative of we should only be paying that.
That's not what I said. I'm just saying they did. They have a job description, a detailed job description of what that person is accountable for. If you look at the first page, number 1 in what it really, this is what it literally says. It says what he's going to get paid for the third year, and then based on all the work, all years based on a work week sufficient enough to provide those services as would be typically expected of someone performing the services as generally described below and herein. That's ridiculous. It needs to be detailed things that what he is going to be accountable doing, and that's not listed anywhere. And on the job description that he applied for, half of those things are obsolete because he did accomplish them. Now it's time for us to look to see what are the new goals or what are the other things we're looking forward to now.
What are you looking to put on there?
Pardon?
What things are you looking to add to the contract?
Well, we have an office for him that he should be using. And do we want him to be required to be here in certain days? Or, a month, how many days in a month should he be here? 8 to 5. He has an office that we have redone, and it's nice, and people can come in and see him there.
So office hours?
Yeah, I'm just throwing that out there, but I think we need to look at it as a whole. I would love to hear other
that's why I'm
input.
asking. You're
Yeah.
saying that there's all these missing criteria, so office hours is
Right.
one. What else do we have that you think need to be added for specific oversight?
I guess I'm not going to speak for Jamie, but my thought when I said some of these things is that maybe we need to discuss what our goals of this position are now, as opposed to 2019, and identify those. And all I'm saying is a contracted employee the best thing for the township, or is a staff person with maybe more of an assistant superintendent role to assist our current superintendent with some of the in-house things they have to do, so that we have assigned things that don't fall through the cracks? Because I think that some things over the last few years have fallen through the cracks because we have not identified a person to do those. And I'm just saying that now would maybe be the time to do that. So.
What things fall through the cracks?
Lease, like overseeing lease situations out in the Wordsmith district.
Leasing like township property? So there's.
Which now we're selling things. So we don't have those anymore.
So you would say he should oversee those leases?
Jeremy, you're putting words in my mouth. I'm saying that
I'm trying to
now-
understand what you're saying,
And I'm
that's
trying to
all.
say that right now, we're talking about putting a 3-year contract into place that I don't feel comfortable just rolling over from another board's decision. So I kind of wanted to talk about the contract. That's all. I'm not saying that Mr.
Right, and that's
and I'm
all
not
I'm asking
trying to,
about.
I am
That's-
trying to actually take the personal element out of it, and I'm looking at, God forbid that Todd, and I'm saying this seriously, God forbid that Todd gets hit by a car tomorrow and is no longer employed. We need to have somebody else come in, contracted or not, and take over those duties. So what I'm trying to say is, we need to identify what we want this person to be doing, the responsibilities and so on. You're saying they're answering to an EIC board and everything else, but
I didn't say that.
I think Mr. Cummings did, sorry. I take that back.
He says he's
Yeah.
answering to a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of people, but but ultimately, everybody in theory answers to this board, and we have a budget to maintain, and I just want to dive down and make sure we understand what we're signing on to. It is nothing negative or personal in regard to anything. And I'm sure other people might say that it's going in that direction, but that is not my intent. I'm trying to look at the
Mine
big
either.
picture, so that's it.
We have an entire township to look out for.
Yeah, so
From the numbers and the things that he's done for us, seem to be doing exactly that.
I am not disputing that those things aren't great, and I was a huge proponent of RRC certification myself. I think it's a great tool, and I'm so glad that we've accomplished that, and as Todd indicated, he's the instrumental person, but there was a lot of other people involved in making that happen.
Well, sure.
And now we need to take that and run with it, but I just feel that we need to look at the current job description and what the goals and objectives are, and just understand it a little bit more, that's all.
Right, and it sounds like you've read through this and that you find that the job description is lacking, and I'm asking, in what areas specifically?
I honestly have not dove into all the things that I would like to change or not change. I feel that this board, we have, my God, 7 people on this board that have very differing opinions on a lot of things. So I guess my thought would be is we need to come together as this board and
Sit down and go through it.
and talk about that, like any other job. That's all I'm saying. It has nothing, I'm not saying that I don't want to rehire Todd to continue his job or anything like that. I
Right,
just think that we need to.
I understand that,
yeah,
but
so
you're saying that we need to delve into it, and that's what this meeting is for, and I'm asking
I
what
feel that
areas.
this meeting is not for that.
place for that.
It would be more of a work session discussion, and goals and objectives, so.
I guess the question is, Mr.
but
Dickerson,
please,
did we not a year ago
Audience, please.
ask for clarification on your job duties, performance, sales of property?
Yeah, I think that was clarified in the chain of command, was it not? The sale of property?
With what you were going to do as respect to your duties and property? Round
Yeah.
about a year ago, we discussed this, and we had issues with what property was going to be for sale, what was your direction, and you had reached out.
Yes, that's correct.
Ms. Klein, to date, have we had a meeting to discuss that?
Which part?
The property or his position going forward? For
As
his
far
duties
as-
and direction when we were discussing it.
As far as who? Like board meeting
Are
wise?
you talking about the disposition of
I'm
properties?
just bringing up the point that we're asking here to have a special meeting and say that tonight is not the time to discuss
We-
it while we're here.
This particular part, job description, we were over and over and beat up last year.
Yep.
Severely. Because I was asked for his contract at least 10 different times. And you can tell when it's going around because those requests start coming in again.
I guess I'm not understanding your question, Josh, and I'm not understanding your
My
response.
question is more to lead to the frustration of direction. You're saying we need to go over it and we need to have direction, but it has been a year that I've served on the EIC board and watched Mr. Dickerson come to the board, ask for direction. We've clarified that we're going to have meetings, but we never actually get there.
Well, who sets those
Who
meetings?
sets the meetings?
The meetings get set by us being able to be there. We had the
So
same issue
somebody
when we
asked
discussed the
if-
park.
So somebody set up a meeting and we all couldn't be there?
We
I don't
never
remember
get to
being
these
asked to-
I was gonna
meetings
say, I don't
is what
remember that
I'm
either.
saying.
Well,
So
sets up the
to be
meeting?
fair, if he was asking for direction a year ago, us as the board has not had any meeting to provide clear direction on what he was to do or the sale of property
So then
and
maybe we
properties
need to
defined.
table this and take care of that disposition of properties and take a look at his job duties.
Well, I would like to say that as far as the job description, the original post is part of the contract. It's stated in the contract, refers back to the original posting that we did back in 2019. And from my perspective, we're just getting started on these things. We were able to complete the RRC certification, but you have to understand, RRC certification is not a one-and-done situation. You don't get your RRC certification and say, okay, now we can go on to something else. That's something that has to
Maintained.
keep going year after year after year to maintain it.
Yep.
All of the other things that are listed in the position summary that were in the original in 2019 are still things that we have to work on. And I'm very happy with the progress that the township has made under Mr. Dickerson. I can say that, you know, I've had property here since 1988, and when the base closed from 1993 up until 2019, there wasn't a whole lot of development in this township. There really wasn't. Nothing new. Empty buildings, and they're still here. And that's what we need to continue to work on, and to bring new development into our downtown area will bring foot traffic into the downtown and will fill those empty stores. That's just simple economics. It's not rocket surgery to figure that out. And Mr. Dickerson has brought in, he completed the RRC certification. We had developers, a developer came in to look at Furtaw Field. Well, because of that fell apart and was never even got a chance to be presented to the board. But it's an effort to bring developers into our township, which is what we need, to bring in new businesses, to build new housing. We did a housing study that says we need 200 units of housing. And Mr. Dickerson has brought in a company that's looking at a parcel on Skeel Avenue, which would be a major development of 200 units. Given the times right now with supply-demand issues that may be delayed a little bit, but a $12 million hotel. And the only way our township is going to be able to pay our bills in the future, because we can't increase people's taxes. We don't want to increase people's tax. I feel like I pay enough tax in this township on my property. Because of Headley and Proposal A, we can't increase those things. The only thing we can do is bring in new development and developers that will be paying increased taxes on those properties. And the properties that the township owns, that we can develop and bring taxes. When the township owns it, we don't collect anything in taxes. Nothing, zero, nada. When a hotel comes in and develops $12 million on that site, there's $20,000 a year in taxes they're going to pay to the township. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but as far as a job description, I think the job description that was originally posted 3 years ago should still be maintained. All of those things need to be followed up, more development brought in, more businesses brought in. I know Todd's working on some businesses and things that he hasn't talked about because they're not solidified yet, but he's working constantly to bring developers and businesses into the township. And I think the past 3 years has just gotten us started. I think the next 3 years, we will see a lot more development happen under Todd's direction. So with that, I would like to make a motion.
I have more questions or a few more statements.
All right.
Actually, Mr. Westerbarth hasn't had an opportunity to speak whatsoever.
Oh, no,
so-
I said my comments just prior.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So North Baltimore that Mr. Dickerson is employed with, has been employed with them for a while. I don't know if anybody even got a chance to read all this stuff that I sent to him. But if you notice, over the last 3 contracts that he's had with them, his contracted price has gone down with them from $25,900 to, I believe, 18, and then down to 12 is what he signed for. And if you look at the job description, it looks very familiar to what he's doing for us. So I'm wondering why they're paying a lot less and we're paying $100,000. And
Okay, please. Thank you.
I'd like to see the board to actually take a look at it and compare it to what services we're getting. It looks exactly like the services we're getting, honestly, and it's detailed out.
All right, are there any other discussion?
Yeah, Jamie, would you please send me that email that you said you shared with everybody? I didn't get it.
I think I sent it to Trustee Cummings, is that not you?
It is, but it
didn't
didn't.
get
I'm
it?
looking at my email and it didn't arrive.
Okay, all right, I will
Thank you.
definitely. Here, you can actually have this copy right here. You can have this.
Oh, that's fine, Sue, thank you.
All right, so is there any further comments then? I believe that you were going to make a motion, Bill?
Yeah, I will make a motion to approve Mr. Dickerson's contract as presented.
And I will support that.
I wish the board would consider in this motion that there's a couple things about in the other things in the contract that they would look at. If we're going to increase, the board's going to vote for this and increase it. There's a line in here, I can't find it right this second, but it talks about extra other pay, like for traveling and expensive. We've done that in the past, and I'd like to see that deleted. Because if they're going to pay him this much money, he should be able to pay for all that stuff himself.
Are you saying travel expenses or
Correct.
pay? Pay is
Travel
wages.
expenses, it says that the superintendent has the authority to authorize any other type of payments, basically. I can't find the line exactly.
Fair enough. No,
Correct me
it's
if I'm
fine.
wrong, Todd, but we're only paying your expenses when you're out on township business.
Yeah.
Correct?
That's actually incorrect. The only time I ask for mileage reimbursement is when I go a greater distance than 5 or 10 miles from the township. All the driving I do locally, week in and week out, when I'm here is on my vehicle, my wear and tear, my gas. I don't
But
turn in.
Well, it should be
my
the
question
contractor.
is, you're going to meet with a developer downstate. You have a hotel room.
If I have a hotel room, yes, I would ask for
That's
reimbursement.
what I was getting to. Yes, thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion on the table, motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Westerbarth. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Wushtabarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
No,
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards?
No, motion carried. Okay, thank you, no, please, thank you, please. Okay, we removed the request to sell township property number 3, so moving, I'm sorry, then we removed number 4 as well. Moving on to number 5, pump station replacement project, pay request number 6, Tammy.
Okay. At the May 23rd, 2022 meeting, the Township Board voted to pay pump station replacement project pay request number 6 out of Sewer Fund 590-000-974.000. Unfortunately, funds were not available in that particular fund line, as if anybody recalls, Mr. Palmer directly asked why we weren't taking it out of the CWSRF, which normally would be. And I had assumed that we would have to pay that before we got the disbursement request. So I contacted the township engineer, Rick Freeman, to discuss the disbursement process, especially with large requests, such as this last one at $824,000, and to see what we could do in the future to ensure that our contractors get paid in a timely fashion. The disbursement request the next day was immediately submitted and received on June 2nd, 2022. I believe it was in the amount roughly over $1 million. So tonight I would ask that the board reapprove the payment of this pay application to be paid from the CWSRF checking account. I do have, working with Mr. Freeman, from now on, instantly when the requests are received, immediately after the board approves the payment, I can apply for disbursement. We can only get a disbursement once a month, so they've been making sure, they being RCL, making sure they have everything they can packed into our last board meeting of the month. So Rick and I are going to work to better the process so we don't have this happen again. I did speak with a representative from RCL. They know exactly what the holdup was, which was me. And I talked to the clerk and the treasurer this morning, and they're going to make sure that that check gets immediately out to RCL first thing in the morning. So.
Tammy, maybe this is a dumb question, but so we can't ask for a disbursement, like if we're given a heads up that this amount is coming? I mean, we have to approve it first, I guess?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So in order for us, we have to
ask for
approve the pay,
disbursement?
and
Okay.
then we can immediately, it usually only takes, depending on if, like this, in this case, there was a holiday weekend.
Yeah.
It normally takes turning it in, and I would hate to say, once it's emailed in, it takes like maybe 3-4 days. So I don't want to commit to 3 or 4 days, being it's the government, but it's usually very quick, very quick.
Right, because I mean, in theory, they know what the total budget is. They know that we're contracted with RCL. I mean, that we've signed this contract, and I mean, we're going to be liable for it. So you would think that maybe they would just do some disbursements, knowing that our community can't upfront those costs. And
that one was kind of a shocker.
Right.
Coming in, I didn't,
Okay.
but their work is picking up, like, they're doing a whole lot more. So the next one could be just as much, but now, as soon as the board approves it, the very next day, I can ask for a disbursement.
Okay, all right,
So-
thank you.
Is there a way that,
Just for clarification, what you're saying is in the future pay requests, we'll approve it, and we'll approve it to be paid out of the CWSRF fund.
Yes.
And
When
then
we receive the funds.
once we've approved that, then you can go to to the CWS and request a payment,
Yes,
and it should come within a couple days, and then we'll issue the check.
yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Are they happy with that?
they are, as long as they get their money.
Well, I would assume so, yeah. But is there any way that we could vote at an earlier meeting to approve something that might, like a
No.
voucher or something for them?
No, it's all, like I said,
Okay.
we only are allowed to ask for one disbursement a month, so they make sure that they just,
Right, that's
Pack
what
as
I was
much as
thinking,
they
if maybe we could, if they could, ballpark what the invoice is gonna be at the end of the month, and then we could vote at the beginning of the month to approve that amount, and then they'll just have to carry any leftovers to the next month. Probably not. I was just
They can't
asking.
ballpark it, it has to be exact. They have, you see what the documentation they have for what they're requesting.
Right.
So it has
So
to
if,
be
so we
exact.
couldn't vote right now to approve the entire project and then be done with it?
no.
Absolutely not.
No.
The
'Cause it
grant
might
people,
not-
the grant people would not
I try to
like
make
that.
it easier.
But Rick and I have, since this issue, Rick and I have discussed, and we will have this put together better.
I think as long as we understand that when we approve a pay request, that
For sure.
we notice that it will come from the CWSRF.
That's
And
what
then-
I'm hoping
And then
for.
we'll write the check once the money's put in that account.
Right.
So we're not writing checks on accounts that we don't have money for.
Right, that's why I didn't want to do that, because with Jamie being out, and I knew, just from what disbursements we had received, I knew dang well we didn't have that much money in there. So I didn't want to have you approve it and have someone say, how can you approve that with not enough money in there?
Right.
So,
Good.
Well,
lesson learned.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve pay request number 6 to RCL Construction in the amount of $824,238.52 to be paid from 590, no,
No?
Wrong one.
Please, no.
Yeah, not again.
CWSRF checking.
There you go.
Support, Worcester Barth.
Thank you.
Great, there's a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Westerbarth to approve that pay request. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Worcesterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to the Art Walk pedestal materials purchase request.
Is this for that thing you were talking about? Yeah. The pedestals?
Yeah, well, no, go ahead and read it out. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay. All right, your packet contains a quote for materials to install the 21 pedestals that will make up the Oscoda Art Walk. Materials include 4x4 post, vinyl cover, and image placard. This expense has been budgeted for 2022 from Fund 101-250-726.000. Moving forward with Art Walk expenses requires Township Board approval.
How much are we approving today?
The invoice from Truly Yours should have been in your packet. It's for, I think, $7,550.
$7,350.
Yeah.
Doesn't say.
7 even?
7,000.
So it's already been purchased, correct?
No, she
Or
just generated an invoice for us. It has not
okay.
been purchased because
So it's
obviously
not
it's not
really-
been
okay.
approved, but we thought that was the easiest way to
Gotcha.
prove and demonstrate that those were the expenses. And as I stated earlier, we'd like to get those installed no later than the week of the 20th, and I think we've got some volunteers to help do the grunt work, so we don't have to impose on the DPW because they're already behind in some of their other stuff, so.
Is the stuff in the lobby then, Todd, is that like an example? I
Yeah.
know that not the artwork per se, I think you said that when you were here, but the,
Yeah, but that's basically what they're going to look like out in the field.
right, minus the bucket?
Yeah, they'll be probably a little taller. Yeah, I mean, they'll be a
Minus
little
the bucket,
taller,
yeah.
but.
Yeah, okay, yeah, they're nice.
I have a dumb question, but we have this 7350, but later in the agenda, there's an item that says a banner installation overpayment, but there's no information on that. That isn't part of this.
Yeah, I was.
Correct. It's for the vinyl banner installation. And so I'm prepared to talk about that when we get there.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
So this is the Art Walk pedestals, not the
Okay.
banners.
Correct.
Right.
So I would make a motion to approve the purchase of Art Walk materials in the amount of $7,300.50 from Fund 101-250-726.000.
Bill, the amount is 7,350.
What'd I say?
7,300.
7,350 cents.
$7,350.
Thank you.
Support, Spencer.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Spencer to approve the quote from Truly Yours and the amount of $7,350. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wishtabar?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Okay, moving on to the resolution section of the agenda. First on, we have Resolution 2022-17, internal review process.
All right, so the internal review team met, which I believe this process was set up through RRC. And we met to go over the fees associated with the zoning and planning department, mainly because the fees hadn't been updated or addressed since 2016, and before that, 2007. So if I look here, the team that does this review, it's quite a wide variety. So that would be myself, Nicole, the Planning and Zoning Director, the Economic Improvement Director, the Planning Commission Chairperson, the Township Board member serving on the Planning Commission, and the Economic Improvement Committee Chair. So we all went to go over the fees associated with development and permits. And with those adjustments, we had to provide a resolution to approve all the updates of the fees.
So basically, the resolution is to make all those changes that are highlighted in the
Yes.
attachment.
Yes.
Good. Okay. Is there any questions? Anybody thought that there was any glaring issues with fees or?
I would just point out that basically the fees, each of the planning commission, for example, each member gets a stipend for attending a meeting. I believe it's about $63. And when we have one of these hearings for a special land use or whatever it might be, the previous fees we were charging didn't even cover the cost for paying the board
Paying the
members.
staff,
So
right.
now with increasing these amounts, at least we cover that cost for the planning commission, for the zoning board of appeal members to their stipend that they receive.
Right,
It's basically, the township isn't making a lot of money on these fees.
right. Just
It-
covering
But
costs.
covering
It
our
doesn't
costs.
cover most of the newspaper ads, especially if
Yes.
they have to do it a couple times. The newspaper ads run roughly $140 for a public hearing. So they're pretty expensive, and the fees we're charging don't really cover even the newspaper ads.
Oh, geez.
So
That's terrible.
What prompted the additional day?
the additional day,
Yeah, it says that the ad for the ad in the newspaper, it says 2 weeks, and it was changed to 15 days. That's going from 14 to 15, right?
No.
I would
checking.
have to ask Nicole that. I don't
Well, it doesn't say
recall.
business days, it says it says 2 weeks.
Unless that's something that was changed.
And then 50, well, this is a document that's supposed to be specific. So if it says 15 days and we're taking out 2 weeks, well, does that include, is that business days only, or does that include weekends? The way it reads right now, 15 days includes weekends, right? And I was just
imagine.
wondering why it went from 2 weeks, which would be 14 days, to 15 days, which just adds a day.
That could be something that Nicole had read. I don't recall that from our meeting. It was more a lot of the fees, but that may have been something that was subject to change or had been updated.
I just wondered, it's just odd to, we're gonna add a day. Okay. That was my only question.
Okay. All right, any further discussion, or is there a motion on the resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-17 as it relates to various zoning permit fees as presented.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Palmer and support by Ms. McGuire to approve Resolution 2022-17. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to Resolution 2022-18, Truth in Taxation, public hearing.
Okay, as I had asked Nancy if she wanted to be here,
She said no.
and she said, this is what we do every year. They should know this by now. So this is our beginning resolution out of 2 for truth and taxation.
That's right.
We will have a public hearing at the June 27th meeting. This resolution has to come first.
Yep.
So you don't approve this, we don't have our public hearing, and we don't get our truth and taxation.
Okay, and she's advertising as appropriate.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions on Resolution number 2022-18, or is there a motion?
I would make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-18 as presented.
Support by Cummings.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Sutton and support by Mr. Cummings to approve Resolution 2022-18. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Sorry, my computer just went to sleep. And I don't know my password. I do, but I'm typing it wrong. Under other, moving on to other, we have the LDFA board appointment revisited.
All right, I wasn't sure if we were going forward with this yet, so I put it on the agenda so we could get some direction on what you wanted to do, if you wanted to move forward with the previous appointments.
I believe Mr. Westerbarth had requested that the bylaws be emailed out from the LDFA. Those were emailed out.
Yep, and I've reviewed them.
Okay, and are we good with moving forward with those appointments, or do we have concerns?
No, I just wanted to see what we were approving and how it worked, so.
Okay,
I have
just
n-
asking if we're
I
ready to
had
approve.
no concerns other than that.
Okay, all right, well then, we are,
So that would have been Lisa Sutton.
yeah, and I was looking for the email.
So was I.
I had an email in my original that had the board appointments, and it was Lisa Sutton, renewal for a 4-year, and then it was actually the Board of Education, the school board approved the 2, but only one was actually expiring.
Right, and I
So-
apologize, that should have been in there.
So, yeah, there was an original email, and I meant to say that's not in there now, but it was the board appointment for Ms. Sutton, and then also Mr. Alda was it Mr. Alda that was replacing
Tony Omani?
Was replacing Mr. Lewick.
Mr. Lewick? Yeah, Tony's is still good.
Okay.
And I just realized that that part wasn't in there. I saw all that, but then I missed what the terms were.
You want the terms? I can.
So.
And it would be in an email, it would have been in the email that I originally sent to you,
Yep,
so.
it should be right in.
I think starts on page 104.
It goes to December 31st, 2025, isn't it? I think.
I said it was in the original email that I sent.
That's what I'm going
but-
for.
You didn't have a date in your original email.
Oh, sure I did, Bill. Just kidding. I don't know if I did or not. It was a month or so ago.
Your email is on page 105, I believe, in the board packet.
Right, well, that's just the part, I think, where it talks about,
Yeah, it's not the specific.
it's not the
Oh.
specific where I emailed Melinda and said, can this please be put on the agenda, blah, blah, blah. So.
But for Lisa, for her term expired in December 2021, the new term would be 2025,
Almost there. Almost there.
right?
4 years.
Yep, for another 4 years. Mhm.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Lisa Sutton to the LDFA.
Do I have to recuse first?
No, I don't think
So
so.
You're not
There's no-
financially benefiting from anything.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Making sure.
to expire in 2025 for a 4-year term.
I'll support that.
Oh, sorry. I was still reading.
And we need to do Seth's also.
Right, so there's a motion by Ms. McGuire and support by Mr. Palmer to renew Ms. Sutton's appointment to the LDFA for an additional 4-year term. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wurstabarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried.
I'll make a motion for Seth Alta to take Mr. Lewick's place and serve on the LDFA until December 31st, 2025, according to the bylaws.
Support, Sutton?
Okay, there's a motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Sutton to approve Mr. Alda's appointment. Roll call, please.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Wurstabarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. So again, we do not need to act on Tony's because it didn't expire yet, but there is a few that are going to be expiring this year, so I'll be coming back to the board with those. Okay? Next, moving on to the tax foreclosed properties, first right of refusal.
All right, your packet has a list of tax properties. This is our annual first round of refusal. Later in the year will be the second round of right of refusal. If the board so chooses, we can elect to pay market value for any of the properties that have been tax foreclosed. We have first right of refusal.
Right, normally.
In this case,
Yeah.
in this case, we don't have to respond with anything, but when the second round right of refusal comes around, then we need to send in a yes or a no for the properties.
So these are all the properties that just happened this year. So all the stuff we did last year are, none of those properties that we did last year are on this list, right?
I don't know that for sure. I just know each year we get new lists. I mean, I don't know if somebody,
In the past, Nancy usually renders kind of an opinion. She indicates, there's really nothing here you'd be interested in. So-
Same this year.
Okay. I saw there was a couple bigger ticket items. I looked at the locations,
was-
but didn't think there was anything, but,
No,
okay.
so.
Right, any other questions, or is there? So you need us to respond with a no?
Yes, if that's what you choose.
Correct.
If that's what you want.
All right. Is there any additional questions, or is there a motion?
But there's a second round, right? This is the first round?
Right.
Yes, that comes back
It'll come
close to
back.
fall, right, Jamie?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Anyone?
I guess I move that we say no.
Support by Cummings.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Spencer and support by Mr. Cummings to say no to the first right of refusal.
Yes.
All right, roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Wurstabarth?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to number 3, Straley, I don't know if I pronounced that right, but Straley Lamp and, I don't know how to say.
Ransling?
Sure, PC invoice.
It's crazy.
I don't want to massacre the name, so.
Right.
I do every day.
So I had to bring this to the board for approval as it is something I don't feel, I mean, I do have approval up to $10,000, but it is finance related, so it is in the packet for approval.
It's always your option to be able to do that anyway. It's not a problem to not exercise it. It's fine.
No, I would rather
Yeah.
not ask for forgiveness, so.
Yeah, it's fine. I understand that too, sure. What was this for?
Good
I don't
strategy.
recall this name.
It's the CPA, public accountant.
That we brought in for
Yes.
advice or
When was
consultation?
that? When did we do that? September?
October.
October.
Last
okay.
October.
Nice
October.
pack. Yeah,
So,
okay. And they're just billing us now?
no, this, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, the third bill?
Okay,
So we've expended
so.
how much?
This is the
today?
first one I've seen.
okay, fair enough.
And actually, I asked for detailed billing on the last bill that we had, I think was in January, late January. And I wanted to see the details, so I thank Josh for sending that out. And in addition to this is what's sparking my financial discussion prior to the audit, because specifically I want to go through some of these issues and adjustments that's been going on between the payable and the receivables. So that's the next agenda item, but this is what's sparking that discussion. I have no issue with what I've seen. There's just a lot of work here, and there's a lot of adjustments. And we as a board need to sit down and go through them.
Okay, so are there any further discussions on this invoice on the agenda, or is there a motion to pay it?
Just one question, how will this be paid? Will this be split between the treasurer and the clerk's office?
That's up to the board.
No, I don't think we do that.
I thought originally when we agreed to bring in a CPA, it was for assistance for the clerk and treasurer, was my understanding. And
Well,
I don't
it's
know what-
really
I don't know
not
who-
just for the clerk and the treasurer, though.
who else would they be helping?
It's the receivables and payables book. It's split between your two offices.
Where else would it come from? Just a general fund?
It usually comes from the unallocated account.
But as I recall, when we approved this, it was specifically to help the treasurer and clerk get these items corrected so that our audit would be less time-consuming.
And to implement processes so these issues don't continue.
Right.
Right, I understand that, absolutely.
So I'm assuming that's happened. This is a substantial amount of money we've paid, I hope.
So we would go through and then pick whose department gets charged what then?
Well, no, because I think the benefit was understood to be shared between the treasurer and clerk's office, because that's what the discussion was originally about.
So.
Would it be 50% each? I mean, if this isn't the first one we've paid, how did we pay the others?
Oh, that's a great question. I'd have to look in the accounts payable and see, actually.
Yep.
Because there's been 2 other ones that were paid.
All right.
You remember?
I didn't pay them.
Oh, that's right.
She's seen it, yeah. Yeah.
I don't
Is
have
there
access
any
to
way
it
we
right
could
now.
put this off until next? Would it be a problem if we put it
Sure.
off? Okay,
that's
well,
Well,
then I move that we save this for the next board meeting.
Support.
So
Spencer?
postpone to the
Yeah, it's
next,
because I couldn't remember which word it was, so save sounded good.
okay, so there's a motion by Mr. Cummings and support by Mr. Spencer, I believe. Was it, or Mr. Okay. Mr. Spencer to postpone this invoice until the next board meeting in June. Okay? Any further discussion?
Pending information on how the last bills were,
Yeah.
how the last bills were paid and what accounts they came from.
Yep,
absolutely.
exactly.
Okay, so are you going to amend your motion, your, not a motion?
I just seconded. I was just,
That's what we were looking for.
Okay,
Thank you
that's what
very
you're-
much.
okay.
That's right.
All right,
sorry.
Yeah, put the words
all
in my
right, roll
mouth.
call, please.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to the code compliance officer hire request.
I just need to sidetrack for one moment. Nicole sent me a message to answer Jeremy's question about the 15 days. It says because it has to be posted 15 days before the meeting, not 14 per the Zoning Enabling Act. So
Very
to
good,
know.
thank you.
so I just wanted to throw that in.
So it was a requirement for the,
Okay.
okay, good deal.
So, the chief, myself, and Ms. Follette did an interview recently with Mr. Randy French for code compliance. He did fabulous in his interview. He's worked for 3 previous police installations and is very interested in the job. So we decided to extend an employment opportunity to him per board approval. So chief has a memo here. He has a clean background, and we would like to hire him for code compliance. We have a pile of complaints.
Excellent.
Yeah, I see that he, when he applied, he said part-time, but I feel like I read that. Full-time if available.
Right.
I mean, I understand he put that, but I think that that was kind of a little bit of an issue with the last person, that he actually needed the full-time pay. So I just hope that he understands that this.
He
I mean,
does,
the odds
very
of this
much so.
becoming full-time, okay.
Yep.
Because I just wouldn't want to go through hiring somebody and then have it be the same
No kidding.
issue, yeah.
And
And
how
is he
many
currently
hours?
working?
No,
Okay.
no, he just moved back here not that long ago. He is working 25 hours a week is what we have him set up for,
25.
25 hours.
Okay.
So.
Start.
He's willing to
He
do all
hit
the
the
things.
ground, he's got a stack this big
Say
when he
he's got a
starts
backlog.
Yeah, hit the
with
ground
complaints
running.
and, you know.
And-
We did specify to him that he needs to learn boundaries because we've had several calls for a different place in the area that is not in Oscoda Township. So,
Oh, yeah, I know where I'm guessing I know where you're talking about,
Yes.
and they are dealing with a nightmare over there.
yes.
I bet.
Yes.
So-
Had 3
So-
people stop in thinking
Yeah.
that it was Oscoda Township.
Yeah, it's because they placed that sign too close.
Right.
I'll make a
Oscoda
motion that we approve
boundaries.
the request from Chief David to hire Randy French.
Thought she was going to say to move the
Support
sign.
Cummings.
There's a motion by Ms. McGuire and support by Mr. Sutton to approve the recommendation to hire Mr. French.
And I would just like to say that we get him employed and working 6 months or maybe a year. I would like for the board to maybe consider making that a full-time position. I think we have a lot of issues here in the township. We're a very large township. We have a lot of code compliance problems and issues that I think a full-time person, if this person works out in a positive way, that maybe, we keep that in mind down the road to consider moving that up to a full-time position.
I would like to see us discuss that during the next budget cycle coming up here shortly.
But we do have a millage that pays for part of that, correct?
With the
Yeah.
community resource
Right.
officer.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to see how this guy works out. I mean, if
Right.
it doesn't work out, then, we wouldn't.
He has
make
no
that
problem
move.
going to appear in front of the judge,
No.
drive any of the township vehicles we deem necessary. None of
No.
that? No issues
And
there?
he has a lot of computer knowledge, so that's a plus too.
And he's a certified police officer, the way I read
Nothing wrong
it.
with that.
Plus. Okay, so there is a motion on the table. A roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to the Munitrex invoice. Tammy?
All right, so this is our annual, same amount, it has not increased for the Munetrix system. It is a godsend. When I first started as executive secretary, I remember hearing about this nightmare experience I was going to have with revenue sharing from my predecessor. And that was also the same year that we adopted the Munetrix package. And this, basically, we provide the information and they lay out the CVTRS, which if
What's
you
that
have.
stand for? I don't know. What's a CVTRS?
It's revenue sharing.
Nobody knows.
It's revenue share.
City, village, township revenue
Yes.
sharing.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyway, and just so everyone is aware, the date on that is May 31st that it was due. I checked my spam folder on June 6th, and that's the first appearance of this bill is on June 6th in the Barracuda. So it was not ignored. It's amazing what gets hung up in the Barracuda. Everything you don't want and never anything you do. So,
Just as a quick side point on that, and I'll wait until we have the discussion about Munetrix here but I want to talk a bit on that exact comment. Go ahead.
What? Don't look at me. I didn't say anything.
No, I'm looking at you guys just down the table. Yeah, I'm allowed to look at you guys once in a while when he gets his head out of the way.
Farther back now. Okay. All right. Okay, so is, do we make a motion? No.
Not
Is there a
yet.
motion to approve?
I move that we approve the invoice here for Munitrix in the amount of $2,844.
Support.
Yeah, I don't know what account it's coming from.
101-299-801.
101-299-801. 801? See?
Missing three numbers.
000.
000. Yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
Good. Done.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Cummings, support by Ms. McGuire to approve the invoice. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wishbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried.
Great. And then the comment I wanted to make is about this spam filter. So we call it the Barracuda because that's the name of the appliance that our support company uses. It's not the product, it's the way they configure it. And I've been having this argument with them for years because my own, if I try to send as a resident an email to any one of you, you will never get it. It has always ended up in the spam filter by them, not you. I've always had this problem, and it turned out to be a problem that the planning administrator, Eric, he talked about it. He kept running into the problem with, who do we use for office supplies? Quill, that's right. Quill would send an invoice, and it would go into every month. And it's like you would call these guys. So I just say, I say to somebody, I mean, unless you want me to go do it, we can jump on their, I can't even think of their name anymore. The vendor.
Whitelist them, does it still?
That's exactly right. That's
It still
exactly.
goes.
I just had Melissa's from the county that I've been emailing about taxes for, well,
Exactly.
25 years, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
And yeah, the other one went right to my spam the other day.
It'll block
Exactly.
mine
You
when
have
I
to
send
be
them to
super
myself
careful,
when I'm
though,
sending them.
because
Especially if you're sending attachments. And
We-
those devices are notoriously miserable to configure too.
I literally sent nothing but a simple message to it with Eric at the time.
Did you
And
put anything
nothing-
in the subject line?
Yes, it was a nice, simple, there was no attachment. It was like, this was probably less than 50 characters.
Oh, it
And
was
I-
too short, must have been
And
spam.
I got spammed. So it's like, I'm just saying, it's like something to, maybe if you want me to help you there, Tammy, I can give him a call with you or something.
Okay, yeah, because the last time they upped the security was because we had an attachment come through that was
Okay.
opened, and
Yep, created a problem.
No, we're
they
still on number
raise,
6.
they raise it because of the problems that we were having, because it was too light of security, so it's kind of a sensitive area.
Oh, they're also just raising it by degrees in the software, so they're letting the software pick for them instead of going in and, yeah.
Sorry, but it's 9:43 and we still have like 3 or 4 topics.
I got all that.
All right, I don't. Okay, moving on to art banner installation cost increase.
All right, so back on 6/20, is it 8? Did I write down 8 or 4? 6/28/21, I asked for $4,295 for board's approval for banner to install the 3 banners we own, but they're not up yet. Through a couple of iterations of where would these go. Each building's got a different, obviously, physical facade, time, inflation. They requoted us for installation the week of the 20th. It's $4,500. So it's a, $100 and some odd dollars more, but Tammy suggested I bring it back to the board though, because it's over the approved amount, and that's where we're at.
So $150 more than previously, you said?
No.
250.
250.
4,500?
$205. The original was $42.95,
A year ago?
95.
and now I'm asking for $4,500.
Right. But I mean, a year ago is when the quote was,
Well, yeah, yeah.
roughly. Yeah.
roughly.
So that's, yeah, not surprising. Impressive. If they're installing, it probably costs them more in gas to get over here now, I would assume. But I make a motion that we approve the additional cost.
Yeah, support Cummings.
There's a motion by Richard, support by Mr. Cummings to approve the additional cost. I'm sorry, what was the total amount for that invoice?
4,500?
Okay, for $4,500 total. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Worcesterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes. Moving on to the 3 agenda additions. The first one is the FOIA. I'll let you say what it was.
The FOIA and custody of documents email from Josh on June 10th. I'd just like him to kind of explain what's going on so I have an understanding. I've read the email, but
So-
I'd really like to know some specifics here.
The chief and myself
Vote on
recently
minutes? Okay.
went through a FOIA training and covered this with Carlito from the same firm that our attorney's at. He specializes in this and just making sure the uniform process is there. So in here, I had, hold on. I searched, so everything's yellow. That's really terrible. Hold on. I just lost everything on here.
Do you want me to pull up on mine? Because I think I can.
So it's really getting to if a request of a public record is received by fax, email, request is deemed to have been received on the following business day. A request sent by email deemed a township spam or junk folder. The request is not deemed received until the day the FOIA coordinator becomes aware of that request. So it's just, so you guys understand, I actually linked between all of our policies that we agree on this, besides me being that FOIA coordinator, is to make sure you guys understand the handling of those documents. Like me and Ms. Richards talked today, if there's a public document out there and somebody asks for it, that's one thing to produce it. If it's something we haven't put out, or it wasn't in a meeting packet, or you're not sure, just default to the FOIA coordinator for those legal purposes, and to make sure that somebody could come in and get a FOIA request, somebody else could come into another township official, ask for that very same document, and if I charge somebody and we give it out for free, it's another hand slap. So just in going through the FOIA, we're going to have a training coming up. I'm working with Carlito, and he's gonna bring it here, and we're actually gonna coordinate like we did with MTA. So we can all go for free training, because we can attend that training as a board. And then also for our other area communities, because Chief David brought up that it's been about 12 years. And I guess Carlito's the one who does this for MTA on a cycle. So that's why we're gonna hold that FOIA conference and educate not just ourselves, but local communities, because it is updated a lot with how we handle it, digital versus the old days coming in. You used to have to bring that FOIA request in when I worked 8 years ago. Now you can send an email, you can call over the phone, somebody could come in and dictate it to you verbally. So there's a lot of changes in there, and I just want to make sure we're handling that, and we're not getting in trouble with any documents going out in any other place. So much like I wouldn't sign a check and try to hand it out, it's Jamie sends that money out, that's a statutory duty, and just keeping in that mind when we have these, especially FOIA, is it's federal. And I guess the long short of it is, I would really like to not go to jail since you guys made me the FOIA coordinator. That's really, my biggest concern is if somebody gives something out or doesn't understand. So that's really, I just wanted to cover those details in the policy and then kind of what we've outlined. So everybody knows if somebody comes to you, again, if it's something you don't think or you're not sure, just send them to me. That's what you guys did. You kind of made me the gopher, so. Yep.
Okay, good to know.
So Josh, you're going to be setting up the training, because I think this is very important for us.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, that's gonna be coming up. We're looking at dates in August, but I'm working right around the primary, or not the primary, but our,
Primary.
oh my God, yes,
Primary.
yes, sorry. Election and that combined in my brain there for 1 month, so. Yeah, I'll send those dates out, because they just sent them out today. And I wanted to get with Nicole to see how she did the payment, because we're gonna be the hub for all of our area ones as well, so. That way it'll be something we make money on, and we're also bringing more people here for that training as well.
Thank you, sir.
And then number 8 was a work session for a couple items, but finance was the main.
Yes, I'd like to have Tammy schedule a work session to discuss the financials related to what the CPA has been working on since he started. And we can go through the list and understand the adjustments on both the payable and the revenue side, and start to understand the process to fix these. There's a number of items, as you can see in the detail report, and I really appreciate getting the detail from the CPA this time. Second is, part of that is I'd like to have a chain of command discussion. We've had some instances in the township where people have overstepped their bounds, and I'd like the attorney present for that. And I'm just trying to make our superintendent's role more efficient, instead of chasing her tail with last-minute items. And we'll get into that at the work session. So specifically, I'd like the CPA and the attorney present. Thank you.
Do you have any dates in mind, Steve?
As soon as we can get the board together, I'm sure this is going to be a half-a-day deal.
So we can do a motion to have Tammy coordinate.
I'd like to make a motion to have Tammy coordinate that work session to discuss financials and chain of command issues with the CPA and attorney present as soon as she can convene and then, a date that works for the board.
Support, Sutton?
Yeah,
Could this be in conjunction with our regular work sessions for the budget? That's coming up soon.
I'd amend my motion to make that in conjunction if we can do that.
I would hope that before we have meetings for the new budget, that we're going to have a presentation on the audit.
Yeah.
So I would think we're a little bit out there on the budget.
We start our work sessions for the budget generally like in July.
Yeah, well, we
Like
haven't
the
even
very
had an audit
end.
yet,
I know.
so just saying.
I'll do whatever you would like me to do.
I'll keep my original motion.
I'll still support that original.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Wushabarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Last on is number 9, MICTV, the ADA quote on the table that was handed out, which I have not honestly read, so.
Either.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but it was on the desk, and I know we've been talking about this for a couple of meetings,
Right.
so.
Does somebody want to explain it to us, I guess? Is there somebody from, I mean, obviously, there's somebody from MICTV
Oh,
here.
they're-
That's kind of a dumb question, but.
They're kind of in the middle of their.
Okay.
They don't, so do you mind if I step in for you, Eric? Okay. So MICTV came up with this, and I just got it today as well. So after researching the costs and labor involved in installing a telecoil field at the shoreline, okay, so in the past, with new buildings, they've put in a phased array underneath the carpet so that people with special T-coil in their hearing aids can just turn it on, and they hook that phased array to the sound system. And it's very cool, but it's expensive, so we're not doing that, because we're talking like 20, 30K
Yeah,
to
no.
put that in here.
Well, yeah, if this was our permanent building forever.
Even,
maybe, but-
if it was a permanent building, maybe, because but then, so the alternative options that will still comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Option 1, there's one transmitter, it's a radio frequency transmitter, purchase 5 receivers with the cords, earbuds, and a charging station for $275. So it's got a little earbud, a little receiver. They broadcast the meeting audio via radio frequency into the theater so that those little hand packs will pick it up, and then the individual user can adjust the volume. The add-ons that they're talking about here, everybody knows that the little earbuds that go in your ear are great, but sometimes you need big noise-canceling headphones that cover your whole ear so that you can actually push out you don't have any ambient noise interrupting the feed from the soundboard. And looks like there are 2 headphone options. There's the standard dual-ear headphones, and are those 125 a piece or 125 for 5 of them?
5.
125 for 5. Okay. Same thing on the premium? Okay, so then there's So for 5 dual ear headphones, basically one for each of the receivers, that'd be $125 for all 5 of them. And then the really nice headphones that really block out the ambient noise, that would be $375 for all of them. So if we go with that package, we're looking at a cost of what, $650? If we go with the premium headphones and the hearing aid transmitter and receivers, looks like about $650. Oh, and they also included some, well, this is kind of a separate thing here, but they included, we were complaining about the microphones at the last couple of meetings, and they've included 2 options for that, but I didn't add that to the agenda, so we may have to revisit that. But for the ADA compliance, that would be the price. If we go with just the basic, we can do $275. If we get the nice headsets for them, it would be $650, if my math is correct.
So, at the price of $275, in theory, we have 5 services that could be used. So if we had 5 people in the room that needed
Correct.
that, then we could assist 5 people.
And then the 6th one is out of luck, and if it continues to happen, we can add more.
In theory, I believe you're supposed to notify ahead of time anyways if you have, if you need assistance.
Disability.
So.
Oh, fair enough.
I mean,
Okay.
You know, I mean, obviously we want to be as accommodating as possible.
For sure.
And I would think 5 would be enough, but if, you know, I mean.
I agree.
guess, yeah.
I agree.
You are supposed to
So-
notify. I thought it indicated that, so.
I didn't, that very well may be the case. When we've installed this stuff for townships in the past, we had to put up the sign notifying people that it was available, and they could just walk in and ask for it. It was
Right.
nice if they did notify, but they had to have it available just in case the person was unavailable to notify. So if somebody walks in and asks for it, they had it available, and we will if we go with this package. I think really the only, me personally, I don't think it's a question on the transmitters and receivers. I think we need those. The question for me is the headsets. Do we want to just go with the regular little earbuds and see if those work well enough, or do we want to get the bigger headphones? And
Question for you on this, if we have the transmitter and transmitting and we're only getting 5 receivers,
yes, you can have
Do
as
you know if somebody brought their own, like, the one lady we had speaking, she said she had her own, but no way to hook in? If
That
it's
was-
transmitting?
that was probably a T-coil, then that would
So
require
that
the
would be
phased
the ones,
array.
okay.
Yep. Now, if she does have her, I mean, basically, if I recall, these things are basically blasting out just standard radio frequency. And as long as you have a transmitter that can receive, so we could purchase more receivers if the need requires.
Well, I was just thinking if they were lucky enough to have something compatible with that.
Up to 99 receivers, we can go with one transmitter.
Okay.
So, and I don't know if they're proprietary. I don't know if they can bring their own and find the frequency. I would imagine that it doesn't encode the signal, so, because, and not at that cost.
I guess I would
That's
just assume for ADA, you would make it more readily usable
Oh, yeah.
versus, you know.
Absolutely.
You can't use iPhone or Android for ADA. You should make it so that equipment works readily available. Wherever they might go and whatever's available.
Well, I'd like to see us do something, because we've had many comments over 4 or 5 meetings here.
Right.
And the only question I would have is just the sanitary thing with earbuds, so
That was where
I'd like
I
to
was going,
pursue
yeah.
headphones and premium
Yeah.
headphones. I
Yep.
mean, it's $650, but let's just make it so somebody can hear.
Would there be
Yeah.
I mean, if we didn't
Like
get the
me.
earbuds with the first option 1, and so
Same way.
we skipped the earbuds and we
They
just
come
went
with
to headphones?
they come with the receivers.
Oh,
They're,
okay.
it's,
I
yeah,
just
they're
don't know.
included in the
Okay.
package. I don't
Well,
think
then
you can-
I was going to say the same thing as Steve did. I'm like, earbuds kind of freak me out.
On the bright
So
side,
I would
these,
say,
the
yeah.
receiver packs have, I'm pretty sure they have a 3.5 millimeter port on it. So if the people want to bring their own headsets, they can plug into the receivers. They just can't take them, can't take the receiver with them, obviously. But
Okay,
if they want to
sorry.
bring their own headset for sanitary purposes, I believe that should be, 3.5
Okay.
millimeter jack.
So I make a motion that we approve option number 1 as presented with the addition of adding on the headphone option at the amount of $125, just the regular headphones. So a total of it's 10 o'clock at night, but $400.
Support, Spencer.
Okay, so there's a motion by Ms. Richards, support by Mr. Spencer to approve option 1 with the add-on of the standard headphones at amount of $400. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Wushtabarth?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Okay, that completes the,
Well, real quick,
Other-
the microphone does kind of fall into the ADA compliance. Do you want to discuss that now and talk and see if we want to get some alternative microphones, or do you want to push that to the next regular?
I would rather move that to the next meeting.
Okay, would you, Tammy, would you please add that to the next board meeting's agenda to discuss the microphones? Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks. Okay, moving on then to our second public comment section of the agenda. One more. Oh, sorry.
I'm going into public comment.
Huh?
I just I wanted to make a public comment before you started.
You want to make
Okay.
a public comment?
I just wanted to let the board know that the Planning Commission letter to the board, that's under informational, should actually be Planning and Zoning Director letter to the board, just for clarification.
Oh.
It's not representing the Planning Commission, that's directly from the director
Okay.
herself.
Correction.
Nicole.
That
making a
does-
clarification.
That does make a difference.
Okay. Okay, so then moving on to the regular public comment on the agenda. You do not have to submit a comment card. You can come up and speak on something that we spoke on tonight or anything else in general. So we'll start in the middle. Anybody here? I believe you raised your hand, so if you come to the podium. You just have to indicate your name and where you reside.
My name is Rita Engel, and I reside here in Oscoda.
Okay.
I bought a home last year for the second time. I lived here about 40 years ago, and now I'm back. And I know it's very late. I've taken the opportunity, and I just want to share some feedback with you folks as the board. For the last year, I was very involved in the last city I was in with their township board and helping and assisting in subcommittees and things like that. So I have taken the time to watch your online meetings during COVID and, of course, read social media. That's always the big exciting part. So you're well aware of some of the decisions you're making aren't the most popular ones for the citizens that you're currently working for. Neither here nor there, I've tried to sort it out. I don't know who the players are. And this is my first time seeing many of you. I've seen some of you before. I would like if you would try to involve the community more in some of these decisions you're making with subcommittees. Get a buy-in from the people that live here and the people that care about what's happening here. Mr. Dickerson, I don't know a lot of his history. I've read a lot of his history. But I thought Ms. McGuire, and I don't know when his contract ends. So that is something I will admit I don't know. But I think she did a lot of research. And one of the things that I had wrote on my paper was maybe you could take a couple board members and get some of the community members and sit down and go over some of the information that she's got and sit down and come up with something that was reasonable so the citizens aren't in an outrage. Mr. Dickerson's still happy and able to perform the job that you need, and somewhere to be met halfway. That didn't happen tonight. I'm not sure what the cutoff date is for his contract, but I watched a lot of citizens leave here very disgusted tonight. This has been an ongoing thing, and I think it could have been resolved for both sides to be very happy. Just my personal thing. I think if you get the buy-in from the citizens, I think you're going to have a lot easier time doing what you're doing. And I've watched some of there seems to be a lot of things happen on the day of the board meeting. So some people don't know what's happening, some people do, some people haven't read it, some people have. There's been votes taken on things that some people haven't even read. If I've listened right, which I've tried to listen very correctly tonight, very efficiently anyways. I'm not sure if you really need police presence anymore. I think that's a problem that's has been passed, and I think it's intimidating for the people who come here. I don't know of another township board that has to have that. So that tells me that as a township board, maybe you need to readdress or relook how you're conducting business and get us as citizens involved in helping you, not fighting you every step of the way. That's why we bought a house here. I wanted to come back. I knew Oscoda was not going to be the vibrant place it was when I left before the base closed. but it has an awful lot of potential. But if you have you people and just a few people making the decisions for the entire community, they're going to fight with you, and they're going to fight with you to the very end, as you well know. So I wasn't going to take this much time because it's really late, but there was just some suggestions that I wish that you would look at. I spent 40 years working for the government, had millions of dollars of budgets, 150 employees at one time, and came out of that smiling at the end of it, but came back here to where home was. And I would like to see home be something that is not so volatile anymore. Let's go back to the happy days and have a good time. And my time's up.
Could I get your name again?
Yes, Rita Engel.
Rita Engel. Thank you.
Thanks, Rita.
Yep.
Thank you, Rita.
Okay, anybody else in the middle section? Okay, Pam?
So, I wanted to speak to you tonight about hope. There is a grant opportunity called the Hope Grant that I wanted to bring to the board. I believe I sent Todd a copy of it. I got it this week. I was asked to participate in the screening of the process as a developer new to Michigan. And this grant, 2/3 of it has already been allocated to Detroit, which I thought was very interesting. The other quarter, 15% is allocated to our area, the upper northeastern area. 5% of which can be used towards administrative costs and administrating the grant, and the remainder is grant funds. The grant is to go to a township or a nonprofit agency, and it's a grant that's used for home improvements. And for our area, it's $1.5 million that would be available. And it's for, I'll read this out, single-family owner-occupied, single-family non-owner occupied, multifamily, up to 3 units, detached condominium units, and modular manufactured homes permanently affixed to real property and taxed as real estate. It's supposed to be an energy-efficient grant, but it can be used for emergency repairs. Some of the things that are included are roof, storm doors, exterior doors, windows, insulation, modification for energy-efficient purposes, functioning up-to-date exterior security lighting, appliance upgrades, and electrical upgrades. These are actual grants given out to homeowners or property owners. So this grant is due by the middle of August. I don't know what it is about Michigan. They love to put out programs and give you 2 weeks to do it.
Amen.
But this would be a fantastic feather to put in the cap of Oscoda to be able to turn this around to the residents of Oscoda to say, here's $25,000 per residence that you can use to clean up your property or improve your property that you do not have to pay back. So, you know, I'm just the messenger. I wanted to give you the information, and Todd, I sent it to you. And if it's something that you're not interested in, please let me know, because I'm in the process of forming a nonprofit so that as a community, one way or the other, we can start tackling some of these issues to help the community members. And I think this is a great one because it really touches every household. So that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the middle section? Moving on to my far right. No, nobody there? Okay, that wraps up the public comment section of our agenda this evening. Moving on to board comment. Does anybody have any board comment?
I'm good.
I'm looking to my right.
Oh,
Anybody
that
on the board? No?
No.
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 You give him too long. Give me shotgun.
Josh,
No.
anything? No? Looking down all the way to that?
Pointing at me?
Yeah, point at you. Anything, Bill?
I'd just like to make one quick comment about the letter that was mentioned from our Planning and Zoning Director. The Planning Commission is a commission that's established by statute by the state under the Zoning and Planning Enabling Act, and they have certain requirements and duties that the Planning Commission is required to do. And one of those is to create certain documents and those kinds of things, and then they have to be approved by the board. But it was a serious mistake when the Planning Commission sent those bylaws to the township to be approved, and then someone from the audience, who, by the way, was a Planning Commission member, should have known better, made a comment about a correction, and then we approved that correction. That is not the way the statute is meant to work. If there was corrections that needed to be made, it should have gone back to the Planning Commission for those corrections. The same way, if a board member here had noticed something in the document that wasn't right, what should have been done is, well, this needs to be corrected, we would send it back to the Planning Commission.
And then it would come back again.
And then it would come back again for final approval. Those are requirements under statute of the state that the Planning Commission has to follow and is obligated to follow. And I apologize, I should have caught that when it was being talked about at the meeting, but it slipped past me, and so it's something that we need to keep that in the back of our minds. When the Planning Commission submits something to us, if there's questions, hopefully, since I'm on the Planning Commission, I would maybe have an answer for that. But if there's a question and we're not sure, it should go back to the Planning Commission for review and correction. So just wanted to make sure that didn't just get ignored, since it wasn't part of the packet, it was just informational, but it's a very important issue that we need to keep on top of.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was wondering, so I agree with you. I didn't catch it either. But should we rescind what we did and approve what was presented at a next meeting to fix that? That's something we should put on the agenda?
I don't know that it needs to go to that level. It wasn't a major revision or anything. That probably would be the proper procedure to follow. I'm not sure if it's, I'm just not sure if that's necessary for this particular circumstance.
I did see it in the packet, and I asked Nicole, and she said she was just bringing it to our attention for future,
Yeah,
so.
for future reference. That's why I wanted to mention
That's what
it.
she said to me, so I don't- Yeah.
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 So,
Okay.
okay.
Thank you.
Steve, did you have anything?
No, it's late.
I do just a short one.
I thought you said, no, it's late.
It's
I'm like-
late. It's late.
Since I wasn't at the last meeting and you guys talked about Kratos, I was watching from home. And as soon as I got back to work on the 26th, and Tammy had mentioned that Josh and I were the two people that could call, I called right away and got Ashley from DTE on the phone. And I know that there was a lot of dialogue back and forth and people weren't sure. So I just wanted to bring up a couple things that were mentioned then. The gas drop notice lock, once the lock is in place, then it won't happen again. The problem with that, she said, is we're supposed to be receiving postcards in the mail giving us the notice of the gas drop price. notice, and we haven't received those yet. And until we do, they will continue to call, and they will continue to try to get people to talk to them from the township. So every office needs to be diligent about when they ask for the accounts payable department and they send them, or you start recognizing the phone number like we were doing in the past, we would just hang up on them, basically. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that there was discussion about whether we were double charged or not. I had her go through the bill with me, and we were definitely double charged each time, and overcharged, more than double, actually. I have copies of the things that we went through. It says gas distribution charge. That is actually that's the actual extra charge. So we were being charged for the gas from DTE and from Kratos, just like Tammy had mentioned. So I just wanted to let the board be aware of that.
Thank you.
Okay, I have no comment this evening. So with that, I make a motion that we adjourn at 10:14.
So moved.
Thank you, everybody.